All right, welcome. I'm calling the meeting to order at 7 p.m. This is the Sherborn Select Board meeting of Thursday, December 4th. All Select Board members are present. Can I begin by having the Assistant Town Administrator read the agenda?
Good evening. After I read the agenda, the board can vote to approve or amend the agenda. I have had not any requests for public comment tonight, and items can be taken out of order, and topics not anticipated 48 hours in advance may be added. At 7 p.m., we have a tax classification hearing given by Jeremy Marset. Item number 2 is a discussion regarding employee health insurance update from the consultant Sue Shalou from the Hill Group and Jeremy Marset. Item number 3 is consideration of entering into a memorandum of agreement between the town of Sherborn and the Sherborn Police Association, Local 158, Mass Coalition of Police, AFL-CIO, for a term of July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2028, fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 28. Item number 4 is update from Luke Tetstone regarding the Sherborn Polar Plunge. Item number 5 is a Town Improvement Advisory Committee discussion with Margot Fawicki. Item number 6 is discussion of educational sign program for Historical Commission. Jane Branch from the Historical Commission shall be here. Item number 7 is the consideration of entering into a municipal agreement between the North Sherborn Water and Sewer District, the Town of Sherborn, and the Town of Natick. Item number 8 is consideration of entering into a memorandum of understanding between the Town of Sherborn, the Sherborn Library Trustees, and the Sherborn Historical Society. Item number 9 is the introduction of the draft FY27 to FY32 capital improvement plan and FY27 capital budget requests. Jeremy Marset will present that. Item number 10 is the 2026 annual town meeting, consideration of opening the warrant for our annual town meeting 2026. Item number 11 is our consent agenda, which is a payroll warrant, draft minutes of October 23rd and November 13th, 2025. Item number 12 is select board reports, and item number 13 is the town administrator updates.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Item number 1, the tax classification hearing. Jeremy?
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. This presentation was in your packet. This is the annual tax classification hearing that the select board is obligated to do every year. This is not a hearing to set your tax rate, but it is to determine whether you'll have a split tax rate or a uniform tax rate. Basically, you're voting for a residential factor. Traditionally, there hasn't been a split tax rate. We voted for a 1.00 residential factor to have a uniform rate. So this year, I'd like to give some kudos to Amy Davidson. She's here virtually. She's really helped keep the fort down in the assessor's office, and has been really helpful. Not only this year, but prior years, but especially this year. So I wanted to give her a specific shout out. We have been using consultants to help in the interim. So we did retain consultants to help us with valuations this year. So a lot of the data is from consultants, and Amy has been very helpful in keeping them on task and getting information into the gateway. And again, thanks to Pam and Deb as well. You know, they are very diligent. Deb has been very timely with getting information into the DLS gateway, setting up meetings with the folks at the Commonwealth to make sure we're on track. So just thanks to everybody in the team. All I'm doing is presenting the information. It's a lot of background work for everybody else that made this happen. So I just wanted to point that out. But again, the purpose of tonight, here's a summary of what we'll go through. I'll go through fairly quickly. But essentially, the main thing you're looking to do tonight is determine whether you're going to have a split tax rate or not. But obviously, once you determine that, it does set your tax rate, which we will give an overview of in a sec. A little more detail on what in the need for your classification hearing. We're obligated to do this every year to set the tax rate. One of the final stages is for you to determine if you're going to split your tax rate or not. So the things that go into your tax rate and what information that we've been gathering over the last few months that is done every year is to update the property valuations. Catalyst and an assessing consultant. They used to be known as Patriot Properties. They have assessors on staff. We've consulted with them this year, have several agreements with them to help update the valuations for residential, commercial, industrial, and personal property. They've also helped us value the new growth for the year. So their data was used in what you see up here and what's been entered into the gateway and reviewed by the Commonwealth. Overall, the property valuations that would be used to set your FY26 tax rate, that's what we're talking about, the current fiscal year you're setting the tax rate for, or setting whether you're going to split it or not and setting the tax rate as a result. Overall, the properties in Sherborn, the existing properties, had a value increase of 9% year over year, with slightly different percentages based on their classification. So residential property valuations went up a little over 9%. Personal property, the bulk of your personal property are the private utility companies and all the infrastructure they have on roadways. Those values fall under that. So it's just the general category that falls under. I'm not showing anything here that people don't already know. Your property values are largely residential. 95% of your total valuations of about a little over $2 billion of valuation in the town. 95% of that is residential, with small amounts of commercial and industrial and personal property. Here is a summary of the new growth. So this time of year, in addition to the property valuations, we capture all of the new growth that may have happened by way of building permits. New growth is different from the property valuation increase. New growth is actual new construction, like a new garage or new single-family home. We track those using basically by building permits and go back through and filter and coordinate with Chris Canny. Amy and Chris have a close relationship where they coordinate all the time, but it kind of culminates into calculating this new growth. So our consultants helped us find $13 million of property value of new growth, which at your tax rates, current tax rate for FY25, amounts to $214,000 in new growth that could be added to your levy limit. The historic tracking of Sherborn's new growth is shown on the graph on the right there. The new growth history dating back to 2019. You can see there is a general trend down with the exception of one spike. Of note, this is not adjusted for inflation. So if it was the new growth numbers, it's just real dollar value from year to year. So if you didn't adjust this for inflation to make it really apples to apples, your new growth trend would look worse, further decline. Why new growth is important is that it's one of those calculations in your levy limit. So with that new growth now calculated, we are able to determine the actual levy limit that was available for FY26. You've seen this calculation before, but it's updated with the highlighted yellow new growth number. That's the actual new growth that we found. Of note here is that when we put the budget together for FY26 a year ago, we had forecast new growth would be $240,000. It came in less than that. So what that means is, as a result of having less new growth than we forecast, your excess levy capacity is a little less than we had forecasted. So the simple calculation based on the actual levy voted at town meeting for your budget for FY26, the assessed values of a little over $2 billion in total property value. It's a simple calculation of division. Your projected tax rate, if you set a uniform tax rate, would be a $15.66 per thousand. And you can see that trend. That is the lowest tax rate Sherborn's seen in quite some time, with that trend shown there on the graph on the right.
And our current rate is what, like a touch over 16?
So touch over 16, correct. So the reason your tax rate is going down is a 9% valuation increase, and your budget increase for FY26 was about 3.5%. So those two working together reduced your tax rate. Your tax rate isn't the exact, that it relates to what folks pay annually in property taxes. Property taxes you pay, tax rate plus your, times your valuations. This next slide shows a comparison with other nearby communities, peer communities, of the actual average single-family tax bill. This is for 2025. The numbers should be pretty similar for 2026. This is taken from the DLS Gateway, so it's data that's gathered by the Commonwealth. Sherborn's bar there is shown on the left. This is the actual tax bills for the year, in comparison with peers, just for comparison. So your action tonight would be to, we would recommend that you again set a uniform tax rate for your FY26, voting a residential factor of 1.0. We have to set the tax rate so we can get tax bills mailed out, printed and mailed out by December 31st. That's why the hearing was posted for tonight and advertised. Sherborn has historically had a single tax rate, and any shifts are generally done in properties that have a fair amount more commercial tax base to shift the burden to, such as Framingham as a shifted tax rate. Natick does not. Natick has a uniform tax rate. So most communities that are similar to Sherborn have a uniform tax rate. The other things that we need to just review this evening are the open space discount. Sherborn does not currently have an open space discount in that there is no property classified as open space. However, if Sherborn did, if you did have an open space discount, it would affect the residential tax rate and increase that burden for the residential homeowner. So no action is needed here, but we just need to touch upon it during the hearing. Next is the residential exemption. Currently, Sherborn does not have a residential exemption.
Jeremy, could I ask a question about the open space?
Sure.
Just to be clear, the open space or non-buildable or non-built land is not discounted. However, the value that the assessor places on it is rather discounted.
Only for land that is put into chapter land.
Oh, okay.
So this open space discount is a separate thing from chapter land. So if properties are requested and carried under chapter land, then yes, they do see some sort of discount with strings attached.
And I was told at one point by the assessor, who's no longer here, so I don't know if this is correct, that excess acreage, like if you have 2 acres of land at the house, then you have an extra 2 acres, whether it's buildable or not, is valued as at a sort of standard rate of, at the time it was 20-some thousand an acre.
Yeah.
Is that still the case?
I don't know the answer to that, but that would be, the property valuations of those properties. So
Exactly.
that's not necessarily
That's not the tax
open
rate.
space. It's just the use of that property. and its value.
Okay,
That may be the
yeah,
way
so
that they calculate that.
effectively, it's taxed lower than, say, if you have,
Sure,
if
based
it
on the
includes a
value.
house.
It's valued lower, it's not taxed.
It's
lower.
valued lower,
Right.
that's right.
Right. So if you had a plot of land next to your house and it was deemed unbuildable for this reason or that, and you bought that lot, like the value of that land would be significantly less than if that was a buildable lot. So it would be assessed lower, but the tax rate on it would still be the same.
So whether it's buildable or not is a judgment made by the tax assessor. I'm not sure that's, is that correct?
Yes. I mean,
Oh,
based with
thank you.
input from other professionals, but yes,
Mhm.
that's a determination, you know,
Okay.
the Board of Assessors and the assessor. will determine.
Okay, great. I
Thanks,
think
Amy.
it's good for people to understand that. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. No, that's good to clarify what this open space discount is. It's separate from chapter land. It's separate from how properties are actually valued.
Right.
Residential exemption, again, this doesn't apply. Sherborn has not used this exemption. Typically, it's used in in municipalities that have higher value properties that are like vacation homes, where they would have certain exemptions for certain values of residential property. If for communities that do use this, it does shift the tax burden. So if Sherborn did utilize this, it would shift the tax burden to other residential properties. It really doesn't apply to Sherborn, but we just need to touch upon it in the hearing. And then finally, the small commercial exemption. Sherborn currently does not use this as well. There are really too few businesses for this to make sense for Sherborn. And again, this would shift the burden to residential and other commercial classes if it was utilized. So no action, again, recommended here. So.
Can I expand on one thing you said? Sure. So on the residential exemption, the way that works, for example, on Nantucket, a significant percentage of the property is owned by people in Texas, New Jersey, and New York. And the houses are used only a few months of the year. In the meantime, you have people living there year round. So we give a residential exemption to the people who live there. And the effect is to transfer tax responsibility to all these people in New York and New Jersey and Texas, all that kind of stuff. So it directly underwrites all of the benefits that the residents get. Schools, roads, and all those things are largely paid for by non-residents of the community. So it's called a residential exemption because it favors the residents, but it's not a tax on other residents, it's a tax on non-residents.
What's the rate? When I was working there, the ratio used to be 10 to 1, like 10 non-residents to the number of residents, ballpark. I don't know if that's still the case, but it was just to give people perspective. It's not.
Yeah, this is like 15,000 people live there year round, and in the summertime, the population is 70 to 100.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, it's not just like a 10% delta. It's a pretty big difference.
Great. Great.
Public hearing, so we need to inform the public.
Yeah. So I guess we'll start with any questions or comments from the public. I guess maybe you can stop your screen share so we can see everyone on the Zoom. So opening the floor to any questions or comments from the public. All right, seeing none, I have one question and one comment. One question is, do we have a calculation for the average tax bill on the basis of this 1566 rate?
There was a chart for last year at 16.
Yeah.
From BLS.
This would be 3.5% more than what you saw last year.
Okay.
Just about 20.
Okay. And then the comment that I want to make, one of the ways that I always think about the tax rate and about people's budgets and budget requests, or needs for budgets to go up, or decreases in budgets that people make, is for every X number of dollars of budget, how does that affect the tax rate? And with a total town valuation of around $2 billion, essentially we're looking at each penny on the tax rate is about $20,000. So it's to me, it's just a nice way to think about when we see a budget and somebody is asking for a $100,000 increase in their budget. You can just do the quick math and be like, all right, well, that's 5 pennies on the tax rate. So just a way to put people's budgets into perspective there. Any other questions or comments from the board? Yes.
So I've sat through this here in Sherborn a number of years, and I've always voted for 1.00 residential factor, which means one tax rate for everybody. There isn't the business of the commercial sector to support it. And so I'd like to do that same motion here today. It's worked well all the years that I voted. It's never been wrong. So we should do it again.
All right.
I'll second your motion.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
I also would like to say that we don't want to do an open space or small commercial exemption for the reasons that have already been articulated. There isn't, the economics don't work with the configuration of who's paying our taxes. It's basically single-family homes that are paying a lot. The transfer, to make all these transfers, it's just going to increase all the amounts that our residents are paying. So I'd move to do nothing on open space and nothing on small commercial.
All right, so motion for no exemptions.
I'll second that.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. All right.
Super. So with that, we'll we can now enter that number into the gateway. Deb did have an update meeting with our peers at the DLS yesterday, and all we needed to do was to enter that residential factor once you voted it. Now you have, so we'll get that in tomorrow, and your tax rate will be set. And we will get you all the tax bills out in the coming month.
And then start collecting them.
On to Pam.
All right, so I think with that, we'll close the tax rate hearing, tax classification hearing rather. And on to item number 2, discussion regarding employee health insurance update from consultant. And is Sue Shiloh here, or are you presenting the findings?
Sue is here.
All right.
I'm going to just go through these slides, and Sue is available to help with questions and add some more color to these slides. This is something that the board had been talking about in the past and had asked me to look into, whether a plan change should be undertaken. Look at this expense. So, taking your direction, I've formed a working group, and representatives from Dan joined for the select board, somebody from the personnel board, some department heads joined, Diane, myself. We retained the help of the Hill group, that's Sue Shiloh.
And Jeff too.
And Jeff was party to the working group as well. Sorry. We met 5 times with the consultant to review the current health options and the costs and potential changes to develop this recommendation, or this talking point for the select board. Overall, the health insurance benefit provides approximately 90 municipal and school employees with coverage and provides 80 retirees supplemental health insurance coverage, covering 350 lives. That's the total family members covered of employees. The budget line for insurance is almost $2 million for FY26. That's about a little over 5% of your total town budget. 90% of that budget is for the employer town share of employees' health insurance, and 10% of that budget is for retirees. The last plan change that was done to employee health insurance was 2016, so about almost 10 years ago. So it is timely. Currently, there are 3 Blue Cross Blue Shield plans offered to employees in both individual and family plans. There currently is no high deductible plan offered. And as such, there's no health savings account option is offered as well to current town employees. Sherborn receives services through the Massachusetts Interlocal Assurance Agency, MIA. Here's a chart here. The MIA communities are shown in light blue. So it's about 100 some odd communities use MIA as their insurance agent to help retain health insurance coverage for employees. Prior to that, the town used the West Suburban Health Group, that small little group here in the middle of magenta. In 2016, the town switched from that group to MIA, which seems to be a good decision. MIA has some bulk purchasing power. It seems to be a good, that was a good choice. And we would recommend staying with MIA. This sort of a historical timeline, as well as a chart of your health insurance expense, your budget line, going from 2015 at 1.2 million to the current budget year, which is 2026, where that blue arrow is. As I mentioned, is about 1.9 million, so a fairly large increase over those years, and continued to be going into the future. So for FY27, we've been advised by MIA to anticipate a 15% increase in that budget line. That's what you see there, number 5 on the chart. And you can see how that increases the chart slope. The last plan change I mentioned was in 2016. That's that star number 1 on the chart. When you switched from the West Suburban Health Group to MIA, and also updated some plan options. Then there was a transition year to that. Generally, the trend has been upwards in actual expenditures, with the exception of 2 years during COVID, where the insurers gave some premium holidays for 2 years. That's fiscal year 21 and 22. So those outlier years where there was a reduction in a premium holiday, basically they didn't ask for any premiums for either 1 month or 2 months during those years.
There's actually, I was going to add to that though, the problem was they gave the holidays because the utilization was low. People weren't going to the doctor because they didn't want, unless they had something severe. So the uptick is related to that too, because people went longer without getting a cancer diagnosis or whatever it was.
Yeah,
so
I mean, that's
utilization was low, and so now the utilization, so it's a cause and effect thing. That the flat period there wasn't necessarily a good thing because people weren't going to see their doctors, and so now they're seeing them at a later stage in some diseases. So
yeah, there was a lot of deferred care.
Utilization was a big piece of that.
Which I think the industry's seeing the effects of now.
Yeah.
Just to add to what you said, I've heard in other hearings like this on accounts that there's a combination of factors, including the population is generally aging.
Mm-hmm.
and that there are more procedures available. Like if you look at the number of possible surgeries you could do 20 years ago compared to the number of things that they're doing now, just more. And the intersection of those two things is helping to drive.
Sue, I haven't formally introduced you, but any context you'd like to add to the costs that we're seeing?
Sure. I think current costs have been escalating, and we're expecting to continue to see those escalations for a lot of the reasons that have already been discussed. Some other reasons are more difficult contract negotiations between Blue Cross and their providers. You may have read in the news recently that they were having a difficult time coming to an agreement with UMass Memorial. That whole health system had to notify members that they may not be contracting with that provider system as of January 1st, but they finally came to terms. But the negotiations across the board have been more difficult. The hospitals are having increased costs, technology, staffing, and then they're getting low Medicare and Medicaid rates, which they're trying to offset by their commercial contracts with Blue Cross and the other carriers. And then finally, on the prescription drugs, we just continue to see rising costs, more specialty medications, and as everybody sees in the news, almost every day, the cost of the GLP-1 drugs, which are the diabetes drugs that are being used for weight loss. So all of these factors together have come together to create a perfect storm. I've been providing health plan consulting to Massachusetts municipalities for 38 years. And I have to say that this has probably been the most difficult year.
And this is showing the budget line for the town share of the premium costs. Any premium increase also affects the employees' out-of-pocket costs. So, those same increases, that same 15% forecast going forward, also applies to the employee share of the premium costs. So,
Can I ask one clarifying question? So forecasting 15% annually, and it says here for fiscal 27 to 29. So just to be clear, we're talking about a 45% increase over the next 3 years.
correct.
And we're currently at around 1.9 million. So that's probably somewhere around $900,000.
That's correct.
And that's just coming into the budget.
Correct.
I guess I have a question, a very broad question, which is, I imagine that this is probably hitting a lot of municipalities in the state quite badly, and especially ones that either are already at or are even closer than we are to the levy limit, and this is one of those things where it's a cost that's spiraling upwards that the municipality itself has little to no control over. I mean, obviously, I think right now we're about to talk about some things that we could do, but it's probably, just a small Band-Aid really, but it's like, what are some, strategies that other municipalities are looking at to sort of, deal with this?
It's a real challenge. It's been a subject of many meetings I've gone to recently with other municipal managers. Where our neighbor Medfield actually has put out budget guidance. Their warrant committee, their advisory, has put out budget guidance of no more than a 1% increase for department budgets because of the 19% increase of health insurance costs they're seeing. Medfield is at the levy limit, so that 19% in that one budget line is eating up much of their 2.5 plus new growth, leaving only 1% left for all other town departments, including the school department. The school department has been asked to put together a 1% increase, which is quite challenging, as you can imagine. So it's a big challenge. Out in the western part of the state, there's a health consortium of communities that this past year, for the current budget year, their rates were forecast to go up. They plan to go up about 19%, and then they had a mid-year increase of another 19% or so mid-year that they needed to budget for, during the fiscal year. It's a big challenge. There are, the tool that we're going to present tonight, and Sue can help give some color to, and has much experience with, and actually helped Sherborn the last time Sherborn exercised this. Is one tool, but it can only get you so much.
Yeah.
In some ways, Sherborn's fortunate that it hasn't done any plan changes in 10 years. There is a little room there, but there's only so much you can milk out of it. It's a big challenge. And I think many communities are struggling with it. The MMA has put out, a general, fiscal concern report for municipal budgeting, budgets and revenue that includes insurance as a concern.
Can I add something to this?
Yep.
So back in the day, when this issue comes up frequently, back in the day, the various municipalities organized their own insurance company. And that's what MIA is. It's wholly owned by the Mass Municipal Association, subsidiary. And if any of you want to serve on the board of directors, that they're always looking for people to serve. So they are oriented towards municipalities, and they when they can, they'll give dividend credits for if we pay more than they need. They often give you back a credit that you wouldn't see from other insurance companies. So I'm glad to see that the idea is to stay with them, because we do have some control over them because they're a wholly owned subsidiary. The other thing I would comment on is that the town went through this in 2016, and I was there then. And plan changes makes a big difference. So if you have a low deductible, I mean, I'll use an extreme case, but if you have a plan that says you get all this medical care with a $10 deductible, and you change that to a $500 deductible, it's a huge cost, because most of the services are at the lower end. They're not at the $100,000 category. They're at the lower end. So little changes like that, and without understanding the proposals that are in this, I try to make sense out of the chart that's coming up. I'm sure you're going to get to, but if you go to a high deduction plan that the town has considered in the past, you can offset that by these health savings accounts. So let's say you have a $1,000 deductible. You give everybody this account that has, let's say, $2,000 in it, and they can use that to pay towards the deductible during the course of the year. Well, having a plan with $2,000 deductible on the insurance side is much cheaper than a plan that's got $10 deductible. And when you take the cost of 350 people times $2,000, let's say that's the amount that you put into accounts for that, you're ahead of the game. So I was trying to see if we were using that. I was trying to read the small print.
Yeah, there's a lot in the background there.
But I see the committee's recommending.
So yeah,
The bottom line, the consensus of the working group was to recommend the select board initiate the process to update plan design.
yes.
And that is a simple vote for us, because we don't need to get into finding the right solution now. The whole point of the process is to start the process. And if it doesn't lead to anything, you're no worse off.
And the plans that are described in all of those tables go very much in the direction that you described.
Didn't make any sense.
It's a lot of numbers, but they go very much in the direction
Further
that you
down the road
described.
is where I would say they've already looked at what you're describing,
Yeah.
and
So Jeremy and Sue will
you'll
get to
see,
that.
yeah, you'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, that information is included.
You have eye coverage, you can get a new set of glasses.
And really, the details of that would come out and be discussed and negotiated as part of the process.
Yeah,
But we wanted to, as a working group, have all this information so that we could give you a good recommendation, based on actual data. And Sue and her folks have helped do that, working with Maya as well. So, we're comfortable that we could recommend that you initiate this process. And there are some options that, with modest plan changes, could lead to some budget savings and also have little impact to the out-of-pocket cost for employees. And also help with sort of the Affordable Care Act and some potential penalties for not having a high deductible plan offering. So the crux is, yes, Paul, the working group does recommend that the select board initiate the process of Chapter 32B, sections, as applicable, which would entail, the select board did previously adopt it. You might want to just do a confirmatory adoption and then vote to, start that process. Tonight is intended to kind of give you, to whet your appetite, and we bring back an item on your next meeting on December 18th for an actual vote to start that process. But we wanted to give you information, have some questions asked. We can come back with more information if you wanted, but wanted to give a little opportunity for you to digest this and ask questions. And the timeline is such that you could start that process at your next meeting, which would then kick off, I'll just go right to the end of the slides here. There's more detail on how this process works, but we just get to the flow chart. So, you are here this evening. Should you wish to start the process at your December 18th meeting to apply the law, to apply Chapter 32B, Sections 21 to 23, we would vote to apply that. Then we notify the Insurance Advisory Committee. They would have one meeting. The Insurance Advisory Committee is made up of representatives from seven appointed from the unions and one employee member. They have to have one meeting. Then after that meeting, the Public Employee Committee is notified, which starts a 30-day negotiation period. If an agreement is reached on a plan change, this process also allows you to go to the GIC. We would not recommend that at this time. We would recommend plan changes and modifications. If you reach an agreement with the Public Employee Committee after 30 days, then that would be effective for your next fiscal year. If you did not reach an agreement with the Public Employee Committee, but what you were proposing to change was better than the benchmark GIC plan, then you could still move forward with those changes after this process. Again, effective for your next fiscal year. Sue, the really quick overview that I gave there, did I say it correctly or any other context?
You did a great job. Yeah. So I think the role of the select board is to authorize the town to move forward with negotiations. I think the working groups, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremy, but the working group still wants to spend some time reviewing the different options to see what makes sense and what they would ultimately want to propose to the employees for the benefit modifications. But everything that Jeremy just went over is correct as far as the actual process. if something is going to be accomplished by next July for open enrollment for FY27, any changes have to be communicated to the employees no later than May 1st. So we have to back up from there as far as getting the approval from the select board, putting together the proposal, and then following the very, very specific steps that are detailed in the statute.
This is really a good presentation. It's a lot to get your head around. I have a question maybe for Sue or any of you who are on the working group. I think a component of this needs to be education of the employees and outreach to the employees to help them understand. It's complicated, and it's hard for anyone to figure out their own healthcare options. Yeah. So this is just a comment that'd be good to build that into the process once the working group has done its work.
Yeah, agreed. And trying to get some of that input even up front in the working group. Pam was on the working group, Christina was on the working group, Diane and myself, knowing that later in this process, the PEC actually has representatives from each of the unions and a retiree appointed by the Commonwealth, but it doesn't have specific representation from non-union employees. So, your point is well taken. This does warrant a lot of conversations with employees and outreach.
And the other general comment, I know you ex-advisory members will agree with this for sure, is that the overall picture of healthcare costs in this country is pretty dismal. And I mean, I think we just have to always have that kind of sort of monkey on our back as we, propose nice things that would be done for the town that maybe we really can't afford.
Can I add to that?
Yes, Paul, go ahead.
So this was a statute. The statute was fought for by the MMA. I was involved with that. There was a lot of outreach to employees because the whole process going through the general court triggered a lot of alarm, concern, questions. So there was a whole process that went on for years. This wasn't easy to accomplish. Every word was a compromise of one sort or another with one group or another. To the extent that it would be useful, I can fill people in on details of different significance of any particular word or process in here, and how the general court envisioned it would work at the end of the day when we finally got the votes to pass this.
Yeah.
Thanks. I was just going to say, as having worked with the working group, that I think that group came together in a very good way. Jeremy did a very nice job leading it. Sue was a tremendous resource. The people working in town hall who joined took a very cooperative attitude. And as noted, all those tables have piles and piles of numbers in very, very small font. But I mean, the message I think one would take from that, if you picked through it, is that there's a plausible set of alternatives to the current healthcare plan offerings that would save the town some budget dollars. Not, it's not gonna fix this problem, but would save the town some budget numbers enough to matter, and at the same time would bring our plan more in line with plans that other municipalities have, and would shift things around some for employees. And as Mary noted, that's always a fraught issue for people, and will take some education and time. But all those tables also show that for a typical family, the out-of-pocket is about the same. It would have a little different mix of premium and deductibles, but out-of-pocket about the same. And so there is really a plan here that would be, I think, in a sense, win-win, and that it wouldn't adversely affect employees and would benefit the town on the budget side. And so I was very happy with how that
There's
group,
some
how
really
that
good,
group
I
came.
agree with
how that group
really
came
good
together.
options. I don't
Yeah.
think it's a bad picture at all myself. I mean, it's a tough environment in healthcare.
It's a
as
tough,
Mary
tough
noted.
environment.
I mean, in general, no, it's not a bad picture for
No,
the town.
I mean specifically, the fine print is actually some pretty reasonable.
Yeah, the
plans.
fine print is
Oh,
good.
yeah, yeah.
There's
That's
just
not-
the
that's not what I
broader.
was
Yeah, yeah.
referring to.
I mean,
And-
there's
and I think the employees are more knowledgeable than we give them credit for. I actually don't think they're misinformed or not knowledgeable enough. They know the health plans pretty
Yeah.
well.
I mean, on the challenges, it's, as Jeremy said, challenge for municipalities facing 15, 19
Yeah.
huge increases. And also nationally, it's a huge, it's not just
Yeah, yeah,
municipalities.
it's not just
Nationally,
us, it's nationally, of
it's a
course.
tremendous challenge.
So do we, just so I have a ballpark sense, the plans that are in consideration, the plan changes that are in consideration, how much effect would they have on the health insurance costs for our sort of budget projection? Are we talking about, instead of a 15% increase, we'd be looking at a 12%, 10%? What are we
I don't know the
looking
ready to
at?
answer that yet. I guess
So-
I'd say. I mean, we've talked about it, but we were sort of weighing different components of the plan, like do you limit what hospitals people could go to, for example? There's all kinds of factors in addition to the deductibles and other rates.
Yeah. So as Jeff said, the options span a pretty wide range.
Yeah.
But, there's a plausible option that, say, would save the town on budget dollars about $100,000, would translate the premium increase from something like 15%, something like, 7%. Now, there are many, many other, don't take that as
Right.
that's what it would be, because there's a very, very wide range, but
Right.
that's order of magnitude.
Yeah, no, that's mostly what I wanted to get at. And then the follow-up question would be, if we do enact a plan change, all right, so then that may limit the cost increase to the budget for 1 year, but then for each subsequent year, we're just resetting a baseline, but we're probably still going up a projection of another 15% each year from there moving forward.
That's correct.
So
Unless further plan design changes were made.
Yeah.
That might reduce costs, but
Right,
that's correct. This is a reset,
right.
but it does not necessarily change the forecast going forward.
Right. So it's kind of like a one-time recalculation, but it really does nothing year over year to address the
So I want
increase.
to draw your attention to this chart. So we did the plan change here. And if you notice, the first year was relatively stable. Then it went up and then it went down. That's, if you draw a straight line between those and let's say fiscal, can't read it upside down, but like 22 or 23. It wasn't bad. It kind of kept things under control because you're starting at lower numbers. Right now we're facing this spike that's going up. Unless we essentially do the same thing. When you rephrase it, if we want to accomplish the same thing, which is a more gradual, more controlled cost increase year to year over like a 10-year period, we have to do something like this.
Yeah,
Does
there
have
is
that
some
beneficial
compounding
effect.
effect, right?
Yeah.
Budgets, so it does have that. But there's no limit on how many times the select board could exercise plan design changes, and as they're benchmarked against the GIC benchmark plan, you have latitude to continue to make, year over year plan design changes. Sue, any more context on the reset and the costs going forward?
Yeah, you're correct about the reset. It brings your base down, but it's not necessarily going to change the trends moving forward. So that's correct. The other thing that I did just want to point out about the market is that it's not just the Maya groups that are experiencing these significant increase in costs. The GIC, which is the state health insurance plan for state employees, which municipalities can join. This past year, they saw increases between 10 and 17%. And it wasn't that long ago that they tried to reach the benchmark of just a 3% increase. I know that you mentioned the joint purchase group out in Western Mass, which between two increases on July and October, they took a 38% increase. There have been other joint purchase groups that have actually gone out of business. So just to let you know that every municipality is dealing with these issues, I think the town of Sherborn has an opportunity to at least reduce that base because you have not made changes in quite a while. And the plan where most of your employees are enrolled is actually a very rich benefit structure. So there is room to move, which I guess is a good thing.
Okay. So does the board need to make any votes tonight about this?
No, I think what we would do is queue it up for your next agenda item,
Okay.
our next meeting on the agenda, to make that official vote. Sue, is there any notice that we need to do before that meeting?
Yes, we'll provide that to you. You have to notify the employees and the retiree association a minimum of 2 days before that vote is going to occur.
So Sue will be helping us with
Great.
making sure that notification happens, and we'll queue it up for your next meeting.
Okay.
Can I suggest a straw vote? Just indicate, I think we're all in support of this, but I don't know.
Sure.
But I'm in favor of it.
Yeah, I'm in favor.
I'm in favor.
Yeah, I don't know that I feel we need to vote
Yeah.
after, you know.
I think you need some guidance whether we go.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think
That's
we're
good
doing
to get
pretty
the
well,
consensus.
actually. I think we've got a pretty good, of action, and her team have been terrific, so.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty optimistic. And a couple of things. One is I view the health plan as how we keep strong employees also. You know, it may be expensive to offer health insurance, but it's way more expensive to hire new people. So you want to make sure that your health plan, particularly because municipal salaries aren't always competitive with commercial salaries. So I view the health plan as a way that we keep long-term employees and their families.
Yeah, Sherborn went through a period where we decided we'd only hire people who work less than 20 hours.
No,
Save
that's
the
not good. That's not
Insurance
good.
cost, keep controls on that. And then we discovered that it was very hard to find people
High turnover.
and high turnover and all of that. And so at the end of the day, it didn't really.
But we've solved that with, Jeremy's kind of led that with the regionalization. So now we have a Veterans Affairs agency that's 2 or 3 towns and a sustainability. So all of a sudden you can offer them 19 hours, but they're getting 40 hours in total, 38 hours in total over 2 or 3 towns. So that's regionalization is part of the answer to that.
All right.
Great.
Guess that
Thank
wraps
you.
up that one. Thank you so much. And thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you. Good night.
All right. Next up, we have the Sherborn Polar Plunge with Lieutenant Luke Tedstone as the presenter.
We're not
Lieutenant-
doing the MOI with the police.
Wait, is that next?
He's got 2, he was on there twice.
Oh, yeah, we're doing the police contract next, I think.
Oh, sorry. I'm following the packet, not the agenda. Sorry. Okay. Consideration of entering memorandum of agreement between the town of Sherborn and the Sherborn Police Association. All right. So I guess is that you and
Yeah,
the
chief's
chief?
here as well. Yeah, Tom's here. It's been a subject of some updates before the select board over the last few months. We've been negotiating with the police officers union. The union on November 24th accepted and voted the MOA that's in your packet. You see the signed MOA based with all the agreed upon items that have been, discussed with the board previously in executive session, formalized in writing. After the board adopts it, there would be retro pay, and we would move to update the full language of the contract to keep that current. I think it's in keeping with everything that's been discussed with the select board previously. Dan, the chief, and Chris Petrini, town council, and myself were part of the negotiating team, negotiating with the union and reached an agreement. Chief, anything you'd like to add?
Not really. I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank Dan. It was great to work with you guys on this and to work with the union to work through some challenges, but we got here, and it was I think it was a fair contract for all involved, and I'm glad we're able to get it done and move forward.
This covers fiscal years 26, 27, and 28. It's a 3-year agreement.
Great. And I want to thank Chief Galvin and Jeremy and Dan for being the town's negotiating team. My understanding is that the negotiations all generally went very smoothly, and it was all rather collegial. I also do want to just express my appreciation for the Sherborn Police Department and all of the officers in the union. I do think that we have an excellent police force. And legitimately, any feedback I ever hear about, people and their interactions with the police department are always positive. I don't think that's only because of Officer West, but I think Officer West is a lot. Actually, is Officer West in the union? I don't actually know.
We didn't negotiate him any special treats in the deal.
Nobody's in the union. That's
Extra
all you
treats.
need.
Yeah, extra treats.
But again, I just want to thank everybody who was involved in the negotiation, and I look forward to a good 3 years before our next negotiation. All right. Yep.
Do we need a motion?
Yes, I was going to call for a motion, so go ahead.
So I move to accept the memorandum of agreement between the town of Sherborn and the Sherborn Police Association as presented in our packets.
Yeah, second that recommendation.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries.
Thanks, Tom.
Do we need to physically sign anything after that? I just want to make sure I don't forget to.
Authorize your chair to sign.
Okay, well, I'll just do that after the meeting. I just want to make sure that.
I think only the chair has to sign.
Okay.
I know I did. It was myself and Jimmy last time, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, when we bring back the rectified full contract, you all can sign, but
Okay.
for the MOA, it's just the chair.
Okay, great. All right. Now, Sherborn Polar Plunge. Lieutenant?
Hey, everyone. Thanks for giving me a few minutes just to quickly talk about this important event. We'll be hosting the Polar Plunge again this year in partnership with the Walpole Police Department on January 10th at Farm Pond. To provide a brief background, the goal of the Polar Plunge is to help fund the Special Olympics mission, which provides sports and leadership programs for athletes with intellectual disabilities. Special Olympics Massachusetts provides year-round sports training and athletic competition in a variety of Olympic type sports for athletes. This support helps the athletes in many ways, such as developing physical fitness, building courage, and fostering lifelong friendships. Special Olympics athletes are never charged to participate in their events, thanks to donations from Polar Plunge fundraising. Due to the support and generous donations from the community last year, our Polar Plunge raised approximately $24,000 for the Special Olympics. That financial support covered costs such as league fees, tournament fees, sports-specific equipment for athletes, uniforms, team apparel, skills clinics and camps, and other things, including buses, meals, and hotels. Special Olympics Massachusetts is a 501c3 registered nonprofit. So with that, I just want to thank everyone that participated last year. Also thank the fire department and DPW for their continued assistance and cooperation with getting the site ready and helping out with logistics. Jeannie was able to put the information about the Polar Plunge on the town website. We're working on a banner for the split to help raise awareness for this year. And I hope that we can build on the support from last year and exceed our results this year. We had great weather last year, and I heard the early forecast this year is expecting 75 degrees and sunny weather, so we should be in good shape.
I have a question.
Yes, Marion.
Yeah, Lieutenant Ted Stone, can you tell people who may be listening or may hear the recording how to contribute?
They can go to our website. They can go to the town website. They can Google Special Olympics Polar Plunge Sherborn, and it provides a link with fundraising opportunities from there.
Great. Is there a way that we can spread the word on where to contribute more widely? A lot of, most town residents don't go to the town website every day. Although they should, they don't.
We will have the banner up soon, we hope, at the split.
Oh,
that should
that'll
hopefully
help.
raise some awareness. And we can talk about some other options as well.
Great, thank you.
Am I allowed to wear my wetsuit, Luke?
As long as it's nicer than last year's, sure.
I swam November 1st for 100 yards.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Lieutenant Ted Stone? All right. If not, thank you very much, Luke.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
All right. Next, we have the Town Improvement Advisory Committee. Margot Perucki.
And George.
And George.
You can sit up here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is the microphone for people on Zoom, so it picks up the whole room, but just so you know, that's who you're speaking to.
Well, first of all, the Town Improvement Advisory Committee was not the first improvement committee in town. In 1948, the Village Improvement Association of Sherborn was formed, and it only existed until 1952, but one of its accomplishments was to do the landscaping around the old town hall, which is now the 1858 townhouse. The Sherborn Center Committee was established in the mid to late 1970s. It was town funded for a short period of time. George Fisk was the chairman. A byproduct of that effort was the obvious need for a committee to be created to work on town beautification. But George, did you want to add anything?
Well,
to the town center committee?
Yeah. Well, I was the Jeremy back in 1974, 75, and one of the things that I thought would be useful, and I persuaded the select board at that time to allow me to create this committee called the Town Center Committee, and our focus was really in the center of town to try to make suggest improvements and to try to fund it that would make improvements aesthetically, but also a lot of it had to do with traffic flow. It's hard to imagine back then, but there was very little distinction between parking lots and the street back then. It was just sort of one great big wide open paved area. So there was a fair amount done on this small committee that involved locals, helped. The fellow who was really probably most prominent in our work was a guy named Tom Worth, for anybody who knew or remembers Tom. And I worked very closely, as did others, with Tom to try to come forward with various things we thought would be improvements to the town. And that did, over a period of time, morphed into the Town Improvement Advisory Committee, which was, I chaired that as well. And it is, I think, Margot had indicated.
I'll continue. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You take it.
So, thank you, George. The Town Improvement Advisory Committee, TIAC, under the direction of George Fisk, was established in the early 1980s and continued to the mid-1990s. TIAC had a long institutional history in Sherborn, and it participated in several signature projects that markedly improved town beautification. Those that participated can attest to the success they had with soliciting funding from local nonprofit civic groups and private donors, and that those funds would be prudently expended. Thousands of dollars was donated to fund these initiatives. The committee was comprised of representatives of the Pilgrim Church, the UUA Church, the library, the Sherborn and Bogastow Garden Clubs, Sherborn Daffodil Trail, Tom Worth, landscape architect, the tree warden, and several town board representatives. Having such a committee in place guaranteed that the project would be completely vetted by the relevant town boards and ultimately the select board. The Sherborn Daffodil Trail Committee, under the auspices of the library trustees, was also created around 1983. Once it fulfilled its mission of establishing a memorial to the Salton Stalls, a library landscape endowment fund was also created by this group. The opportunity to continue selling bulbs was then turned over to the Sherborn Garden Clubs. They established the Town Beautification Fund, which underwrote many of the Town Improvement Advisory Committee's initiatives. The collaborative effort ended after a period of time, but 42 years later, we are still selling daffodil bulbs, and that is with the Sherborn Garden Club, and we will be selling bulbs this Saturday at the townhouse. And those funds will go towards town beautification. Examples of the Town Improvement Advisory Committee projects included coordination of design and planting of town office grounds, lighting, parking, and a traffic plan. Collaborative lighting effort with the town office, library, UUA Church. The town office granite lampposts were donated by a private donor. Landscape architect Tom Worth often said this entire town green area should be looked at in its entirety and part of a big picture. The group also did plantings on town property in front of the Sherborn Citgo gas station. They did extensive design of plantings and parking plans at CNL, post office, and bank. They did a tree planting effort along Main Street in other areas of town. They designed and implemented the fencing along Cemetery Lane, did tree planting at the playground on Cemetery Lane, coordinated the design and implementation of the stone stairway leading from the top of the driveway between the 1858 townhouse and the UUA Church, which was paid for by the Sherborn Garden Club at the cost of $10,000. They also did the plantings around the 1858 townhouse. They created islands in various places and maintained those islands for several years, and that would be in Coolidge Street, Dowses Corner, Horsebrook Road, Route 16 and Butler Street, Farm and Lake intersection, Route 16 and 27 intersection, the Rousseau Monument corner of Sanger and Route 27. And unfortunately, the Sanger Street, Washington Street has been replaced by the monument. Among the Sherborn Historical Society's archives are master plans, various committee reports, and studies, and they all are collecting dust. The one plan that shouldn't sit on the shelf is the Sherborn Master Plan from 2019. This amazing document not only defines what needs to be done, but has developed a proposed action plan, including who should be in charge and who should pay for it. And it is just an amazing list of things that need to be done in this town and who should be assuming the responsibility for it. It can't collect dust any longer. The goal tonight is to enlist your support of the Town Improvement Advisory Committee concept. The residents who have expressed interest in this concept have traversed the state researching banner poles, historic district signage, educational signage, Dunkin' Donut buildings, town greens, gazebos, bandstands, and pavilions. Many have shared their observations and taken part in making some of these items a reality. They now want to develop a definitive action plan for what was formerly the Costa property, which adjoins this property. This project has been under discussion since the initial acquisition of the property in 2008. A reuse committee spent considerable efforts in developing plans as well. Various other proposals have been considered over the years. During the town's 350th anniversary year, another effort was made to develop a signature gift, such as a gazebo or pavilion for this area. A preliminary plan was created by Janet Walsh. The Historical Commission, Historic District Commission, and the Costick family all supported the concept. The Friends of the Council on Aging indicated their interest in supporting such an effort. Funding for all that was happening in town at that time took precedence, and the concept was tabled until now. 17 years have now gone by since the town acquired this property. For years, basic maintenance was done, and then the area served as a staging area for the library project, and most recently, the roundabout construction. Thanks to the DPW, the property finally looks presentable. The concept of creating an area with accessible trails, benches, and a structure where one could gather is still the plan. Based on research of several area town green structures, it has been determined that a pavilion is the most suitable structure. Jim Garino from the Sherborn Historic District Commission and Planning Board has developed a concept that incorporates architectural features of the various past and present buildings on the town green. Sam Nelson has suggested a more suitable and economical location for the pavilion. This fall, an on-site gathering was held with the Historical Commission, the District Commission, the Town Planner, and a rep from Accessibility Commission, and Nancy Hess, former chairperson of the Caustic Property Reuse Committee. The pavilion and its new location were discussed along with potential Sherborn Historical Commission educational signage considerations, and Jane Branch will be joining you later to discuss those. We have considered contacting Tri-County to establish whether they would consider such a project. It was something that had been discussed by the earlier reuse committee. Tri-County has recently created gazebos for Millis and Rentham, and this might be their first pavilion. Another thought is to apply for an April 24th Arbor Day project, having tree work or the heritage apple orchard restored on the property. And that would be the goal. March 31st would be the deadline for that application. Clearly, this entire project will need to be phased in, but it has potential to become a Mass 250th initiative for 2026. Mass 250th expects all towns to participate in activities in honor of this special year, suggesting the various nonprofit groups to designate a fundraiser for what would be the signature gift, the pavilion to the town, would be the big ask from us. And we need to reach out to various groups now to plant that seed. They all will have to come into the picture to make this project a reality. That would include the Accessibility Committee, possibly Forest and Trail, Sherborn and Bogastow Garden Club, Sherborn Fund, Friends of the COA, Sherborn Business Association, Cultural Council, etc. We understand there's many grants available, and a town fund has already been established for this project. It is our hope that not only will you be inspired by this concept, but you'll accept the plan and participate in supporting the effort. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much, Margot.
And by the way, this book about Sherborn Town Greens, Massachusetts Town Greens, is just incredible. Sherborn did not make the cut. Hopefully, several area towns did.
Paul.
So first, I think it's a great idea. Secondly, I think anytime that citizens get together and want to make our community better, we should support it. Third, I've been trying to figure out, because I'm a lawyer, the structure of something. And we could go with just a couple of people being the leaders, or we could actually establish a committee. And if we were going to be establishing a committee, I looked at the last one that we had, and it looked like there were 9 members. And I wanted to get a sense from you and George, do you want some kind of formal structure, or do you want to continue the way you are now, just a group of...
George, I'll let you speak to that. Actually, I'll speak. It should be informal. You know, at these meetings that we had, people came and went. They didn't all come to every single meeting. They came when it was a specific reason for them to come because they were involved in the specific project. And so I think it would just be simpler if it was an informal committee, but I could quite honestly say the one that we had was a very dedicated group.
I will say, for looking back at the history of the groups that have come along, and they've always been fairly informal. There's been a lot of representation on them, and as Margot suggested, people have come and gone as they've had interest or particular skills to offer. I do think that this group should be I don't think your author. I think they are really advisory. So they will be coming forward with a plan or plans, and those can be presented to the appropriate group. And I think the select board is the primary one that they would take the greatest interest in. I see the planning board certainly and other boards getting interested and involved. But I would, view it as an advisory group, people who'd like to do good things. Margot's outlined something much more specific. If that's I'm here to try to lend her some support because I know how hard she's worked at developing this whole notion. And so I think it's wonderful. And if it's something that you would like to see move forward, then here's an opportunity.
I think we want to move forward. I'm trying to figure out what vote to propose, if any, to help you move forward. That was the reason for my question. So it's not to appoint you.
No.
Then I could see doing a motion to...
Before you make any motions, I think Marion also wanted to say or ask something.
Sure.
Oh, right. It probably won't affect your motion, Paul, so it's probably just a question and a little clarification. The plan that you presented here is very much town campus centered. Your description sounded a little broader, like the aesthetic experience driving through town center. I'm sure you thought about that too. Is this a group that's going to take charge of organizing and writing grant applications? And can you also explain what's the relation? I know that Sam Nelson is part of the group, and he's done a lot of work on thinking through the library landscaping, the caustic property landscaping, and I see a lot of his work in this plan that you put forward. Maybe this is his plan, but could you explain what is sort of his group that's been working on this part of yours, or how is that working?
Well, I think that I've been working with a group on the Library Landscaping Committee, which Sam is also on. And so we've been overseeing this entire town campus as an entity in itself so that there will be consistency throughout as far as plant material and whatever. And this will be our thrust, and this will be probably a multi-year project, to say the least, especially with fundraising and whatever that has to go along with it. Before we go down to town center or whatever, we need to work on this project.
Right, so you've identified potential grants that could be gotten for this. Will your group be writing those grants, or?
There will be people working on that, but we also have significant interest from the Friends from the Council on Aging in supporting this project. So that's going to be a really good start for us.
I think it was more of a task force than a committee.
It's
where you,
really a task
well,
force.
task force where you could swing someone in when a task of their capabilities and interests is matched. So
Which is what we did before.
yeah, I think that describes it better. A committee, I think, of minutes and meetings as opposed to independent people working and then reviewing with
Right.
appropriate members of the task force.
I have a couple of questions. One would be, when your group sort of meets and discusses things, is there a way that that is publicized beforehand so that if there are members of the public who aren't already in sort of your circle want to be involved, is there a way that they are informed?
There will be many opportunities to include anybody that would be interested in joining us, either through social media or the various groups that will be contributing efforts. The garden clubs, the business association, etc.
So it's very sort of word of mouthy.
It is.
Okay. And I guess I just want to make sure, not a lawyer, so this may be to some degree a question for Paul, but I do want to make sure that we don't run afoul of any sort of, public meeting or open meeting issues, because ultimately this does turn into a group that is helping to decide what to do on town-owned property, and I 100% concur that the idea of this being more of an informal sort of task force is preferable to being an official committee. But the open meeting laws are there for a reason, right? And they are to ensure broad public access, posting meetings so that people know when and where they can go if they do want to be involved, and to ensure that, that there are minutes and essentially openness of it all. And I'm not saying that there is any intention on your part not to be open, but it's sort of like the law is there to ensure that, right? And to have some guardrails on it. So I just want to make sure that the process doesn't run afoul of that at all. And
In the past, we would just have one representative from a town board attending. And I think that they were cognizant of it then, and I think they'd be more than cognizant of it in today's world.
Just a little tougher now, because once you put together a group of people, even if there's one member from different boards, that group itself could become itself subject to the open meeting law. I think that was the point.
Right. That's just my concern, is that, if there were people who are in town who felt that they didn't like this plan and felt that they were being excluded from providing their input on it, or I'm not saying that is the case, right? But if it were, and nobody in this room knows about it, those people would have no way of basically breaking into this. I could imagine how this whole thing might go up, and then somebody in town was like, well, who decided this, and well, I wanted a skate park here instead, why didn't I get to say that I wanted to have a skate park instead of a pavilion, so I'm just saying I want to ensure that everybody's views and inputs are open, are welcome, or can that they have the opportunity, really.
That will definitely be a priority, but I can remember in the past, we met with the selectmen on a very regular basis, bringing them up to date on exactly what we were doing.
Sure.
I was just going to say my silence and non-participation here is just because Sam's involved in this.
Yeah.
So I'm just keeping
Sure,
I'm just keeping my head down.
Yep.
So I put together a motion, but before I present it, I want to emphasize that this can be changed at any time. So if you try this, later on you decide you want more formality, or we decide that there really should be the open meeting law applies, so to be noticed to the public and minutes and all that kind of stuff. But these are decisions we can make later. But I fashioned something that right now would be to kind of embrace you all in a positive way, without using the language that creates any formal structure. So that motion would be I move that this board confirms our commitment to cooperate and work with an informal group of community volunteers for town improvements.
That sounds good. And I can assure you, I was the secretary with TIAC and kept the minutes. And we had a treasurer that kept the finances in good order. And we still have all those records today. We tried to turn them over to the town clerk. And she said, "You're not a formal committee. I don't want them." They still are with George Fisk and myself.
But again, this is just a birth. So it's one thing when you're a 1-month-old baby, and it's another thing when you come in with a need for more formality. I think we're all receptive to do what you want to do, because I think we all welcome you're doing this. You're coming forward and being volunteers. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
All right, Paul has made a motion.
Well, I think we should second it first. I'll second it before we vote. Did someone already second it?
No, you were the second.
All right.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And you're abstaining?
Just abstaining.
All right.
Thank you, Margot.
Thank you
George.
very much, Margot and George. George can't help
Put a
but
tie on. I'm impressed.
Just for you.
you can't help yourself but just continuing to stay involved, right?
I'd like to see this in my lifetime. So we've been waiting a long time for something to be done with that Costa property.
Yeah.
85. So I'm planning on keeping pretty busy for the next few years. So
Well,
Very much.
I've been involved in town things for the past 10 years, and almost every year I hear something about, oh, what about the caustic property? We could do this with the caustic property, and I would love to see something actually get done with
And
it.
I think Nancy Hess would like it too. She was chairman of the reuse committee. She really wants to see it happen. Thank you.
All right, next we have, sorry, I'm gonna keep stealing looks over here.
An
Discussion
executive session by default.
Discussion of educational sign program for Historical
audience.
Commission. For that, we have
still fine, I know.
Jane Branch from the Historical Commission.
Hi there, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. That was a great presentation from Margot and George. So this is kind of tangentially related to that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jane Branch. I'm the new chair of the Sherborn Historical Commission. And I have a really brief summary of our piece to contribute to this town green project. And then hopefully we can have a nice discussion about it. So as you all know, the Historical Commission's most important mission is to preserve our community's historic places and to educate the general public on Sherborn's rich and lengthy history. As part of the ideas that was just presented by Margot and, thankfully the revived Town Improvement Advisory Task Force, the Historical Commission is currently working on a series of informational signs that we want to be part of this project, to be installed along a proposed walking path planned around this new green area. And we work on these signs with the help from the Sherborn Historical Society for primary sources and research, et cetera. So it's kind of a joint project already. But just to give you some background, to back up slightly, our sign program for the Historical Commission began quite a few years ago, maybe 8 years ago, with a really great timeline sign at Farm Pond. So hopefully you guys have checked that out and seen it. And from there, we completed a cottage industry sign in conjunction with the library landscape renovation. And that's by the parking area on Sanger Street by the library. So for the town green, we are working on a set of 5 signs currently that provide facts and images, maps, and talk about events and history around Sherborn from before colonization through the present. It's kind of like a walk through time in Sherborn. We've already completed one of these signs and we're working on a second. Both we are aiming to temporarily install this spring, in spring 2026, in that general proposed pathway. It's kind of like around the circumference of that area, out of the way, but near enough to draw some interest. We're hoping to continue these signs, creating these signs, and we want to have them out for the public to see instead of being stored in my barn currently. So when the town green plans are finalized, then we would have the signs permanently installed where it's designated on the plan. So putting these first two signs in temporarily in the spring will accomplish two goals, I hope, to selfishly further the historical commission's aim to educate, but also to generate public awareness. So kind of addressing that, how do people know what's happening in this area and how can they get involved? If they have interest in it, they'll hopefully be asking questions. Hey, what are these? What is this for? So if our community can really envision this special place that this green could become, it could be a place to gather, to listen to music, build snowmen, and learning something about our community. That's a really strong motivator for fundraising for this project, and also volunteering. We want to hear what people want to use this space for and how they could get involved. So we think that this sign program can sort of help jumpstart questioning and interest from the community. So we're really excited about it. We're happy, glad to be part of it. But to kind of wrap up all of that, the Historical Commission has two asks from the Select Board. One, to hear what you think about this. I'm sure you already know about it. You hear about it in our budget meetings, but general feedback on the sign program. And two, to see if it's possible to get permission to temporarily install, meaning like without concrete, we're basically just digging a hole and putting them there so people can see it as this project is kind of still coalescing, working with the DPW to put them in temporarily. So those are my two asks. And that's my spiel. So thank you for your time listening, and I'm looking forward to hear what you think.
Great, thank you. I am in favor of more signs. And anything that's informative, educational, especially about the history of the town, I think is a great idea. Certainly, I would be in favor of you putting the signs in temporarily. I see no reason not to. But I'm curious to hear any thoughts from the rest of the board. Marion?
The Open Space Committee that one of your colleagues, of course, Sam Nelson, is chairing now, is thinking also a lot about that space, not only for historical education, but education about other things in town. For example, where do you find the trail system, et cetera. And on Open Space Committee, we have talked about including signs that with QR codes, so people could use their phones, get a QR code, and then open up a whole world of information standing right there on the town green. So applying this to historical society, have you considered a QR code on the sign to take people deeper into the story?
I think that's a really good idea. And no, we haven't thought about that only because of the technological things that can come up if websites, because a QR code attaches to a website or a URL. And if URL changes, then the QR code no longer works. So we'd have to kind of think about how we could maintain those links, especially on a printed sign. Although
You're right. It's not.
Consider that, but we haven't really thought about that only for the longevity of it. So to give a little background, the signs are 2 foot by 3 foot. These that we're proposing for this area do have a different frame than the other two signs that we've done. We spoke with the accessibility committee, and these are going to be 2 posted angled signs. So it's available for all ages and abilities to see them. They're a little bit lower profile too, so it allows for more greenery. But each of these signs has a fairly large price tag, so it's not really something that we want to have to ever update in the future. So that's the pros of QR codes are great, but the cons are kind of a concern.
Just planting an idea.
What are the signs made of?
They are aluminum coated. So it's the base is aluminum, so it's non-rusting, but it's printed with I think it's a vinyl coated aluminum. The frames are powder coated aluminum, and they're assembled on site.
Paul?
So I think it's a great idea. Thank you for doing it. But secondly, because I'm a lawyer, I worry about some things that have come up in other communities. So I've been through in another community where they had this little park, and they started off with these nice little signs about the park, identifying trees by name, that this is a certain type of tree and all that kind of stuff. And after a few years, that morphed into things like don't walk your dog. If you walk your dog, clean up the mess. Or we've installed cameras for people's security. Please be aware that you're being filmed at all times. And then you have the problem of after dark, you really need to have lights for people for their protection. Now, this situation I'm talking about was in a more urban community, but where you have an unlighted area and people might be walking along, you'll hear any lawyer say that you not only want the cameras, but you need some pretty bright lights to provide for basic personal protection. So there's like a whole host of things that come from science, and it comes from operating a park as opposed to like a natural preserve or just an area, an arboretum type of thing where you're identifying plants. So it wasn't clear for me from what you said. And again, I'm just speaking as a lawyer because I like this idea, but having been through this before, you don't want somebody to get
Injured or
trip over something in the dark, or even worse, get mugged.
So to address that, I've talked with Heidi, the town planner, and she's made it very clear that this town green should not be referred to as a park. I'm not sure what the ramifications are for that, but I don't believe that we are going to call it a park or call it a park for certain liability reasons and restrictions on signage and lighting and things like that that you've just brought up. So I think that she might better highlight that. And I think that the rest of any other signage that is going to be proposed for this is something to think about. We should obviously be finding out what signage is required, what we need to do. But our purview is just for the historical signs. So if they want anything as far as continuity for graphics to make the whole place seem cohesive, I'm happy to share what we have with them, but our purview is just for the historical signs. So I'm not sure what other things might be required.
Just explain the implications of a park or an open space. If we designate this as a park, it automatically triggers a provision in the state constitution which says that it can never again be used for anything else without getting a 2/3 vote of the Massachusetts General Court.
So I think that's not something that they're wanting to call this or designate it that area as a park at all. What's the difference between a park and a green? I'm not sure, but I just was told that, and I'm you can better inform the ramifications, and I think you just did for that reason. I think they don't want this to be designated as a park.
And nor as a green per se, because a green has the same problem.
Okay.
Anything that's put aside for open space then has this problem. But I was part of the group that helped buy the Costic property. And one of the reasons we bought the Costic property was so that if we needed to put a well there or expand the town hall, use it for something other than a park, we would have that sort of in the bank. But if you designate this or create something that's like a park, that is open space, that is a town green, any of those things, you've frozen it in time. And it could never then be used to expand the town offices. It has important legal implications.
Well, I think that this discussion is important. I think this specifically is probably outside of the purview of Jane and the Historical Commission, since I don't think that she is naming this region. I think she's just making some signs with historical information, right? So as long as your signs aren't saying at the top, Sherborn Town Park historical sign, I think we're okay. Jimmy.
Yeah, Jane, a question for you. Is one of your signs currently between the town hall and library? I think the additional sign there.
The only sign that's over on this side of town is the Cottage Industries sign. That's between the kind of the book drop off. It's on Sanger Street, between the book drop off box by the parking area and the front door to the library. I think the Historical Society did a sign that's about the Salwin Academy, but that was a restoration of the old cast iron sign, as I recall.
Okay. So do you need an actual vote from us for anything tonight? I guess permission, what was it, permission to put up temporary signs?
Hoping to see if it's in the spring that we have, we will have 2 signs to put in temporarily. And is that okay?
Do we need to vote on that?
Yes, because we have control of the property.
Okay.
We're responsible for the property.
Okay. Someone want to make a motion about that?
Sure, we'll authorize 2 signs. Well,
would we want to see the signs before we vote?
I don't think they're going to say no dogs allowed.
Well, no, I know, but
I have a PDF of one
I don't want to prove anything sight unseen.
If you'd like to see it, I have the one that's already been completed. We're still working on the second sign that will be done by the spring, but I don't know if it's possible to share
Yeah,
screen.
you should be able to share your screen.
Okay. Let's see. This is the one that's completed. Let's see.
I think
it's very much in line with the Cottage Industries sign, and
We're seeing your email, Jane.
okay, that's my email. You saw my script. Let's see.
you are asking for feedback on overall design, so we do want to see it.
Well, that's
Wow,
cool.
that's a much more complicated sign than I was
Yeah,
imagining.
that's pretty
So
cool.
it's similar to the Cottage Industries sign. It has the same background, and we started with 1650. The sign that we're working on now is before 1650, so it's a little bit more challenging as far as primary resources when we're talking about indigenous peoples, et cetera. So we try to make it colorful. We're talking about what life was back when Sherborn was first founded by Europeans. So, trying to get some original drawings and photographs of what architecture was like. How did they take care of themselves? Who is this famous person here? Does anybody know? And things like that. So this is the sign that we have completed already, but we did not want to put this in with understanding that the first 100 years isn't the first 100 years of this land. So we're working on that currently so that both signs can go in at the same time.
I think I served on a board with him.
Yeah.
And
What's that?
approximately where on the property are the signs going to go?
Well, we were working with Sam Nelson on a previous plan that was proposed, I think, 2 years ago, and it kind of had this circuitous kind of path that went around the kind of perimeter of the property. And so we were thinking, if anybody is familiar with it, the orchard that runs along Washington Street, that this would kind of start along there from the giant tree and where the well is. A little bit beyond that kind of curves around this kind of rectangular space. So, we do want it to be a walk through time. So it's kind of like we want to start with the pre-colonial time and moving on to the first 100 years and then the next time period, et cetera, as you walk around. So kind of like the edges of the property.
You may want to merge that lot with this lot that we're in now to make it one lot. That is the town building lot and the caustic lot. So rather than two parcels, they're one parcel. And the use then becomes general municipal uses, offices, and that's part of, this trail is part of the office use and not a separate trail use. Because
It's the town campus. That's why I like the word campus.
yes.
It's a
in order to do that,
multi-purpose space.
You got to go to the planning board and ask them, it's a reverse A&R, to erase the property line between the two lots, merge them together, and create the town campus.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just trying to get back on track here. So what, do we want to wait till we see the second sign before we actually vote? Is there a reason, Jane, why you would need us to be voting on this in December rather than in the spring when both signs are actually completed and ready to be installed?
No, it's just that we had this on-site meeting and we originally were just going to put the one in, and then the kind of optics of it was like, wait, why don't we wait until both signs are completed to put them in at the same time? So, but that was before I made this appointment with you guys. So
Yeah.
it can be put off, but both signs will look similar in style and continuity.
Yeah. I mean, I think that essentially informally you probably have the support of the select board, but I do actually agree with Jeff that technically we probably should see the actual signs that we're giving you permission to install before we actually give you the permission to install them.
Right.
And so given that it's not like you need a couple months of lead time for a contractor or something right now,
Right.
Why don't we just wait until you've got both signs actually ready before we vote on giving the permission to install them?
Okay, that works fine. And going forward, is this the protocol that we will need to do as a commission, or are we going to be working with the town improvement task force? Because there will be a series of 5, which I love talking with you guys. I'll come on here and show you all the ones as they're ready to be put in. But is that the protocol that I should do going forward, that we should do?
Your final
Approval?
installation is going to be after that path is made, right?
Right. So once, these are just temporary. It's just basically to create some buzz of what this space is going to potentially become. That was the only reason for the temporary installation.
Yeah, I would say that probably for each time you want to be putting in a temporary sign,
Okay.
probably, you're going to need to come through the select board.
Okay.
Ultimately anything that gets done to this property is going to have to go officially through the town, so if the permanent installation becomes part of just a general sort of construction project, then it can just be rolled up into that. But each time you want to do something that's outside of the broader project or a preamble to the broader project, you'll need specific permission each time.
Okay, great. All right, well done. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Jane. That's
thank you.
Great.
Great.
This time
Thank
looks
y'all.
awesome.
I'm excited.
All right, next, consideration of entering into an IMA between the North Sherborn Water and Sewer District, the town of Sherborn, and the town of Natick.
Sure. So this topic is, been the subject of some updates before the board over the last 4 years. More recently, Marion, Stephen, Sean, myself, and actually Jeff at one point were meeting with Natick. We've been meeting with Natick more frequently as of late. With the help of Special Town Counsel Tom Mellon, who drafted the IMA, a three-party IMA between the town of Sherborn, the town of Natick, and the North Sherborn Water and Sewer District for the provision of wastewater collection services. The details of which have been worked out between the folks mentioned and Natick Town Administration. You saw distributed a full draft to the board on November 18th based on all of those preamble meetings. The Natick Select Board actually last night were reintroduced to this project. They had a last update like a year ago, but they were reintroduced to the project last night at their board meeting. Their town administration expects that at their December 17th meeting, they would formally vote to approve the IMA. So in advance of that, it would be desirable for the town of Sherborn to approve the IMA. So it's before the board for your consideration. It has been discussed also with the North Sherborn Water Sewer District. 2 of your members are on that commission. So they are also, as one of the parties to the agreement, have been involved.
And just so you know, the district commission met last night, but did not vote on it just because I think, there were some minor edits that were done, I think, yesterday. So there really hadn't been enough time for everybody on the commission to have looked over it. And so I believe we are going to meet again next week on the presumption that the select board will have voted on it. So then the water district will vote on it next week prior to Natick the following week. So we'll be the first domino to fall, essentially.
I guess the only question I have is, the only thing in there that we want to vote on is really the flow rates that are quoted in there. And I don't know what they're based on. In other words, are they based on just the developments, or do they include Meadowbrook? In other words, it has a maximum flow. I think there's 2 flow rate numbers, and that seems to me to be the only thing that would be maybe not ready to be voted on if we don't know, unless we know what's included in those numbers.
We do. Go ahead.
Yes, that's been a subject of much negotiation.
Yes.
So the language that's currently included, it seems to be the agreement between the towns, subject to ratification by the select board, has an overall flow limit, which includes all of the existing uses within the district and some organic growth, including Meadowbrook Road.
Yeah.
So there's an overall flow limit that includes all those uses within the district.
Okay.
However, there is an initial limit that includes both of the developments, where the developer is paying one of the connection charges that is due to the town of Natick, the infiltration and inflow fee, as part of their initial mitigation package to the town of Natick.
Okay.
So flow beyond that, individual connections would need to pay this IMI fee as part of the connection.
Yeah.
That's the only difference between those 2 flow numbers.
Yeah, just worried that we wouldn't want to enter into something where the number in there didn't allow us to do certain things in the sheet. In other words, that there's enough margin in there to do.
Covers the 2
there's margin.
developments and all of the existing
Yeah.
uses within the district.
Yeah, plus growth.
plus some growth and plus some
Plus.
excess.
Oh,
Right,
that-
plus
then that's
additional
fine.
excess on top of the
Okay.
organic growth, yeah.
And you
That's
can
fine.
always reopen negotiations.
Right, right.
If you needed more flow beyond that, but for wastewater, that.
But it sounds like timing wise, we have to vote tonight and then in order to get it to Natick in time, is that what we're saying?
That would be ideal, yeah.
All right, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
So
Any other?
Good with that.
want me to make a motion to approve the draft, what do you want me to refer to, North Sherborn Water Sewer District between the town of Sherborn and the town of Natick to approve the intermunicipal agreement?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So I didn't vote because I am waiting for the State Ethics Commission to okay my participation in this because I work for the town of Natick and I work for the town of Sherborn.
Oh, so you're abstaining?
You can talk out of two sides of your mouth, you know, you're okay. You're all set.
But I support going forward with this project. I just want to wait for them to give me their advice.
Great.
That's great, there's a major milestone.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Does
So
this
is that an
require
abstain, or
physical
how do you
signatures as well?
characterize that?
It will,
Recuse,
after,
Okay.
temporary refusal, all right.
Great.
People
Excellent.
have to come around to
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for all your hard work.
to sign it this week. Okay.
your vote is enough.
Is it off? Okay, great. Right. Let's see here. Where are we here? 8. Consideration of entering into an MOU between the town of Sherborn, the Sherborn Library Trustees, and the Sherborn Historical Society.
This was an item at your October 23rd meeting. It's an agreement, MOU between the town of Sherborn, the library, the Board of Trustees, and the Sherborn Historical Commission for the fit out of the library basement for storage of historical items. Covers the design through the construction. We are working on getting out an RFP for the lease prior to occupancy. Set up a working group at the beginning of the summer. We've had some odd meetings of the working group, made up of folks from the library trustees, the historical commission, town staff, and other interested parties to work through this MOU, what the lease and RFP will look like, and to kind of manage and kind of be involved with the design of the project. The project actually has been out to bid since mid-November. We put a pre-bid meeting earlier this week, and the bid opening for construction is on January 8th. So it's timely that this MOU be supported. The Library Board of Trustees voted to support this prior meeting.
Great.
Move approval.
Second.
One question. In the whereas section of the document mentioned that what's anticipated upon completion is a lease, just because there was some later language that mentioned lease license. That is the expectation that there'll be a lease.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah.
That's great, thanks.
But there's only an obligation to do good faith negotiations towards that.
Right.
This isn't itself.
Oh, yes, understood, thanks, yeah, okay, good.
The only other issue is that the ARPA funds, I think, have to be used by the end of 2026, don't they? What year do they have to be finished?
Yeah, end of
It will-
The end
26.
of 2026.
End of the
Yeah.
calendar year, yeah.
And that
So
was-
that's,
you allocated
they're
that
counting
towards
on
the
the
design.
100,000 or whatever the amount is from ARPA.
Yeah, so you've allocated that towards the design.
No, I know, but they have
which
to-
is now
We have to,
Final, so
We
we
have to-
should be getting a final bill for that ARPA funds.
yeah,
In the coming month.
okay,
Then we have a whole year to pay.
yeah.
December 31, 2026.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
All right,
Aye. All right. Wrapping up here. Introduction of draft capital improvement plan.
You're not done yet, not done yet.
So So just this week, the roll-up of the capital improvement plan update and proposed capital items for FY27 that will be requested at Springtime meeting was published. So this is just a summary presentation of that full document that we will get on the website shortly, but that has been distributed to the select board, the advisor, the capital budget committee, department heads, and others. So that is a document that's out there that we'll get on the website for everyone to see. But it was put together similar as the last 2 years, gathering from all the budget makers their capital requests and updating the 5-year look ahead. And culmination is that there's over 50 projects in that 5-year plan, totaling over $22 million in value. The plan identifies almost $16 million in tax-exempt borrowing to fund and the use of $3.5 million of free cash. And unfortunately, there are some state grants that mostly, that $2.8 million is mostly Chapter 90 funds that the town receives annually to offset some of the road costs. Of the 5-year plan, here's a summary of the request by department, with the Public Works Department capturing the biggest monetary sum, mainly because that's what you see a lot of the infrastructure, roadway infrastructure, stormwater, and the municipal building facilities come under Public Works and facilities, and that's why they're the largest department there, followed by the schools. And then the fire department has now risen to the 3rd place with the addition of 2 fire vehicle replacements in the outer years of the 5-year plan.
So you got $1 million for Pine Hill School.
Yes. So that was a summary of the 5-year plan. The requests that are being put forward for the Springtown meeting for FY27 include a request from the regional schools for the high school roof and skylight restoration. That project was pulled forward. That was not originally slated for next fiscal year. That was a year out from that. They've pulled that forward. It's a $2 million project. The $927,000 would be Sherborn's share. They have deferred some additional rooftop units that had been slated for FY27. They have deferred those to other years. So we're going to swap them. The net is more expensive, but this project would restore the high school roof, replace skylights, and remove the rooftop planetarium at the high school. The Sherborn schools, the Pine Hill Elementary School, had originally slated to have the roof replacement done in FY27. That was a $1 million project that they have proposed to defer. But a project has come up that is timely, and it's the water supply tank. It's a pressure tank that helps regulate the pressure and run the treatment and supply for the building. Is out of compliance. It's a public water supply regulated by SDP. So they've required that storage tank to be replaced. I think there was a previous reserve fund transfer that came forward for the design. So we hope to have a design and bid in place for town meeting. We estimate that cost would be $300,000. So we're working with the school department to help implement that project.
It's the original tank too, right?
It's original. It's large.
Yeah.
All what Sean said. It's like it's a big tank. It doesn't need to be that big. It'll be smaller. But there's other ancillary piping it's a little more complicated than it seems on the surface. It's a requirement that we either repair or replace. It seems better to repair and to replace and free up space and for possible PFAS treatment in the future. The police have their regular annual request. They're on a 1 vehicle year. Last year there were 2 vehicles. The fire department has a handful of projects. One's frame repairs to engine 3 to get some more life out of that. We'll likely see a reserve fund transfer related to engine 3 for the repair of its pumps system. That's more urgent. So that will likely be a reserve fund transfer we see in the near future for your input. They're proposing replacement and addition of thermal imaging cameras. They're actually used during fire incidences, one for fire safety and locating folks to rescue and to help fight the fire. They'd like some more self-contained breathing apparatus items, and they need to replace some fire hoses and nozzles. The Public Works Department has a truck replacement, replacing a truck with a one-ton chassis hook lift. They have 2 prior years they've purchased hook lifts. They're able to swap bodies, so they become more flexible trucks. So you can put different bodies on, a brine tank or a dump body or whatnot. Roadway management is a continuation of the roadway management plan that was presented last year. This is a slight increase in the local contribution to try to get up to that funding level presented in that townwide inventory. And they're putting forward some replacement of equipment at the recycling center, mainly the electrical service for the compactors, and to purchase the compactors from E.L. Harvey. Currently, we rent them and pay a rental fee annually, so it's more efficient. It's better if we purchase them outright at this point, but need to update the electrical service.
Just a question on that. It's been a recurrent theme over the last 20 years that we put solar panels at the transfer station, and that would cover the electrical costs of the transfer station.
Yep.
So we have some reference to electrical stuff. Is anything being done about that? Or
we have looked into putting solar on the swap building. The roof is not in great shape. It doesn't. We can't just put solar on it, but without some other repairs and upgrades to electrical service. But yeah, it's a good reminder. We should see if there's any synergy there for this project. I'll check on that as well. And lastly, for Public Works, you'll see the town facilities and infrastructure. There is a over $1 million request there, which comes from, at last town meeting, it was funded to do an update of the on-site insight reports, to do a condition assessment of the 6 municipal town buildings, and they updated all of the systems inventories, and they put together a 20-year plan of capital maintenance with different funding in each year based on the need of the buildings. So the first year initial costs are what you see there, $1 million on some design, some implementation. This study was completed at the end of November, so we've just received this. I think this deserves more vetting and a presentation of that specifically at your next meeting, so that we can dig into more detail. I still am not aware of all the detail that's in there, and how it relates to how the town can afford, and how that fits into how we operate the buildings.
Is that figure an estimate by on-site insight?
That is, yes. It's a 20-year funding plan.
Right.
The summary of which is included in the detailed materials in the capital plan that was published. In the background details, there's the funding by 20-year cycle.
Right.
They did a reserve analysis that assumed a different way to fund it, and also just came up with the cost per year.
Mm-hmm.
But it's for all 6 town buildings, so the town hall, police, fire, the 2 fire buildings, library, what their needs are. So it's a significant increase over what you've seen in the past. So definitely worth further vetting. And I know we've talked about this either last year or the year before. The total cost of that 20-year plan is about $8 million, a little over $8 million. Certainly would be a reason to reinvigorate or to form a permanent building committee to offer some outside advice to the select board in maintenance of buildings. So just another, I'll put that bug in your ear. That there's a lot of informed folks out there that might be able to offer more vetting of this.
The biggest benefit of this on-site insight, though, is because our capital plan used to be, don't do any maintenance for years, and you therefore then replace equipment rather than maintain it. So by having, if you've looked at the on-site insight reports, which I've done in detail many years, is also giving you maintenance plans so that you don't have to have early replacement before life cycle.
Oh, it's a great report. It's
Great
quite,
report.
quite thick.
But we never
And it is
did the
summarized
maintenance
into
part, so we always had
plan.
failed
There's a lot of
units that we had to replace. So that's the key thing. It reduces the cost by causing us to do maintenance.
$8 million over 20 years.
Yeah.
So what is tier 1 versus tier 2 versus tier 3? If we had to make choices, we should go with a tier 1 and tier 2 later?
Yeah, this is defined in the capital plan document and on the bottom. I know that's a pretty fine print because there's a lot on that table, but the definition of the tiers on that 5-year capital plan
Oh, I see.
is on the bottom.
Must do versus should do versus could do. So how do we know which projects are which? I mean, some of them are identified, but town facilities and infrastructure covers all three, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, there's so much in there. It's hard to categorize it as one because your roof might be a tier 1, whereas repainting this room may be a nice to do. So that item is so encompassing, so many different things. It's hard to place a tier 2. And again, I think it requires more vetting.
Yeah, because if just hypothetically we wanted to control costs by cutting down the amount next year from 4 million to something less, you're saying we should look at tier 3, the could do, but not tier 1, which is the must do.
Yeah, or the balance of the capital projects being put forward by makers include server and computer replacements for IT, Woodhaven elevators and lifts. That's likely going to get deferred by the Elder Housing Committee, so that $100,000 would be deferred. The farm pond stormwater and access improvements for $200,000. That is something that you may want to consider deferring. That was slated for this coming year. Given that the water-based plan is not completed yet for farm pond, and the MS4 permit, your stormwater permit with EPA is in flux, that might be a project that you would defer. There may be grant funds to also pay for the cost of that project.
Was some part of that ARPA funded?
The design was.
Okay.
The design is well advanced and actually permits with conservation, I believe, in hand. So it's ready to be.
Okay, so it's just the construction of it,
Yeah.
and that's going to be totally on us.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that may be one that you would defer from FY27.
Also, wasn't Woodhaven elevators on last year's plan?
It was deferred.
Okay.
It likely will get deferred again. They're in fine shape.
They're in fine shape.
The Elder Housing Committee is meeting next week to
Okay.
discuss this request.
Jeremy, there's another table that shows a total of 4.3 for FY27.
Yes, that includes state grants.
Got it. Thanks. Yeah, okay. Got it. Yeah, thanks.
These are just town meetings.
Yeah,
requests.
got it. Thanks.
The toughest thing about these capital projects, which you well know, is that if you don't have the design, some scoping design costs like a year in advance, your cost estimates aren't very good.
Yeah.
So ideally, I like a sort of a 2-year plan where you spend whatever it is, $80,000 to evaluate the roof of a new building and then come up with a couple options for capital, because you don't know what the cost is really going to be, and you ask people to approve a huge amount and then it comes in higher or lower than that, they get upset. But if we don't allow the DPW or the town buildings people to I've always advocated to have some design dollars, almost like a fund of design dollars that would be used to get a scoping design that you could get better price quotes for.
My understanding is DPW is proposing that in this
Is that,
year's
is
budget.
that what they're,
In addition,
Yeah.
some money.
Sean and I have been talking about that
do
for
something
a
like-
decade, probably now.
I think we need to dig in further. Sounds like with that request and how we work.
It is,
And it's tough when projects get pulled forward. Like the
Yeah,
high school roof
exactly.
project, $2 million project being pulled forward. It's my understanding that regional schools are advancing the design and maybe trying to bid that before town meeting, but this $2 million cost is not based on full design.
I was just going to pick up on Jeff's point to channel Eric Johnson. It sure would be a lot easier to, like with the school project, to support that if there were a firm number and a real bid and a real quote, because it's another $1 million to Sherborn, and if it's
I'm sure you need a real bid, a real quote, but if you haven't really done any design work, you don't even know the scope.
Need something other than somebody like me on the back of an envelope jotting some numbers down. That's
if
not.
you have an engineer come in and do some of the sizing analysis.
Although because I think of the volatility in the construction industry right now, even engineers' estimates have ended up.
I mean, even that
missing.
with the Pine Hill HVAC
Right.
project, we already had a design, and the bids came in like more than double.
Yeah.
Just because there's so much
that's more of a
volatility
supply
in that
demand,
industry.
I think, thing in terms of because the
What can you get?
available
What can you get?
capacity.
When can you get the equipment? When can you get somebody to come work on?
But
I was
Even the Pine Hill roof, right? I mean, it's been carried as $1 million for several years.
And
It's and it keeps moving out. That hasn't been designed. That's a bit more of a liability for Sherborn than the regional schools are. Is that the
Pine Hill roof is wicked complicated because there's 1 million HVAC units on the roof. It's not like
certainly worth some assessment and study.
Yeah, absolutely.
it's not a roof, really. It's
to pick up on Paul's point, this is a pretty 3.7. That's a very substantial number that would add significantly to the town's debt service. Would add $20,000 per penny on the tax rate. Would add significantly the tax rate. So I think there's some hard thinking to do.
I had questions about the last two items on the list here.
Yeah.
So Jameson, my understanding is that like the entire Jameson Field situation is being reevaluated. So
Yeah, in the detail, so the Recreation Committee has provided some detail as far as their thoughts for the master plan of the baseball and softball fields at Jameson. So essentially it's reducing the 4 to 3 fields.
Yeah.
And this request fits within that master plan.
Uh-huh.
This is not based on a design.
And there's
renovation is based on a concept. It's not
Yeah.
based on a design. So
But then it was
getting back to the cost request. It's not
I can't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago. I think that we approved a town meeting
$100,000
for Jameson 4 or something like that, right? And was that even spent?
A portion of it has been spent for some survey.
I see.
but the bulk of it has not been
Bulk has
spent.
not been spent.
Yeah.
Borrowed, but not spent.
Yeah.
So this is a different field.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So that's another one where I'd just be like, it seems a little half
plan
baked.
that they're putting forward
Yeah.
that seems to be worthy of more vetting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if this master plan is the right plan, then perhaps that money that was appropriated for that other field could be reappropriated, perhaps.
And then the last one, is that the software update that our most recent assessor was asking for?
That's correct.
And does our sort of current board of assessors agree that that is necessary?
It's necessary.
Okay.
And in that, the current software we're using is going to be sunset by the vendor. So we'll either be forced into doing it, or be better to plan on it.
And if we're talking about that and questions on that, current vendor is Patriot. They don't have an upgrade that is suitable.
We do have an upgrade. However, it does come with a price tag. It's not,
Of course.
it's not as easy as a flip over as it might seem, and there's a lot of implementation dollars. So, we would want to seek a price quote from them as well.
Yeah, because
It was interesting with,
this is vision, right, that's contemplated
that's
here.
based on a vision quote.
Right.
The quote, I believe we have gotten a quote from the current was last, but it was still fairly significant. But it was interesting sort of being a bit more hands-on this summer and fall with the accessory department. The utilization of the consultants, which I think went quite well and was efficient. It was interesting, they had need to get into the camera system. And our current camera system is network-based, it's not internet-based. And the only way you can get onto it is an actual computer here in the building. And that caused some issues that Klaus was very skilled in helping alleviate. But if we are to do more outsourcing of things like assessing, they'll need more access to the camera system and better access than we have right now.
Is the camera system sort of standard for towns in Massachusetts?
It is.
Because we have to get more standard across the
It
state.
is. All the towns have some form of computer-assisted mass appraisal system.
Right.
The assessing function in Sherborn is frustrating to me, and then you have fewer parcels than other communities do, but the sort of fixed cost to run that department and develop your property values is just a lot more per property than other communities. It's right for sharing the service with other communities to spread that task and the cost that, but it's hard to find a partner to do that. It does not seem that you need a full-time town assessor.
Okay. Other questions that pop into my head as I look at capital plan is the use of free cash. How are we determining which projects to utilize free cash for? Because our free cash number has generally been going up, and I think it's pushing 10% of the budget now, right? And I think the recommendation is 3 to 5%.
Right. So that's the only guidance that's available in your financial policies is what your balance of free cash should be.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's for you the town to generally determine. There's no, more detailed guidance as to how you spend those funds, and to what degree, and to how much of that you dedicate towards capital. Certainly worthy of consideration and updating your financial policies.
Yeah, because it seems to me like we could use free cash on more of our capital projects, right? Or we could be putting more of our free cash into our stabilization funds, including one of which being the capital stabilization fund, right? And I know that is just moving from one bucket to another bucket, but still, if we start building up the capital stabilization, then we could strategically use that for things like design projects and things like that, right?
Exactly.
And so I don't know, is that a decision that the select board makes? Is that a decision that advisory tends to make and then we just sign off on it, or?
That's a great question. You might want to propose to the government.
I think the answer is
yes. Your government structure has no clear ownership of your capital plan.
Yeah.
The closest thing to it is that your bylaw creating the capital budget committee, and that's these 3 sentences. It's very unclear who owns your capital plan and how it's put together.
Yeah. Because even in all my time on advisory, every year.
The only reason I'm able to do this is that the summary that the capital budget committee has asked me to.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of falling under their authority to help compile this plan for them.
Yeah, no, because every year on advisory at this time or closer to the end of the budget season, it was always a little bit unclear to me how that decision was being made that this project was free cash and that one was borrowing. And then when money was going into stabilization, it was just like, okay, the treasurer is recommending this, and it's like, sounds good. And it's just like, well,
your operating budget there's no clear ownership of your operating budget.
Yeah.
it's literally a combination of consensus until you get to town meeting. It's voting.
Yeah.
There's no some other communities. It's a advisory budget.
Right.
It's a select board budget where it's a town administrator budget. It's somebody owns it and presents it.
Yeah.
And makes some decisions that go into that.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be an advisory committee budget. That's how we've been doing it for the last 20 years. But then we
By
brought,
way of tradition, yes.
we sort of created a concept that the town administrator would be a leader in putting together the budgets. So we took the model that advisory would own it entirely, and then we have you doing most of the work.
And if that's the way you'd like to continue, you may want to consider some bylaw updates to make it clear.
Yeah.
Regarding the capital improvement request, you put all this together.
That's right.
So what's the role exactly of the capital budget committee? Would you just remind me? I'm not criticizing, I'm just asking.
So the capital budget committee,
They're established by bylaw,
yeah,
and it's to review capital requests presented to it annually and to make a recommendation to town meeting.
But they can't do that without the big picture that you got here.
well, they should have the big picture.
Right.
I can say when I was on the capital budget committee, it was like the big picture was sometimes a little bit scattered.
It's ebbed and flowed with the degree to which the capital budget committee has evaluated projects just one off and to which they've looked at a bigger picture.
I mean, it's one of
who's on the committee and what they
They would
choose to
often
do.
look at, like, if you could replace a fire engine, though, they would look at, what was the maintenance record for the previous fire engine that justified getting a new one, or they would do, it wasn't necessarily a recommendation of spending, it was making sure that all the sort of I's were dotted and T's were crossed in assessing why this was needed.
A little more due diligence
Yeah.
is the
So it wasn't necessarily, do we want to do this or not, but sort of what's the cost benefit analysis.
But to come back to Jeremy's point,
Yeah.
our bylaws are very non-specific about all of that. And so
Yes.
it comes down to very much who are the players and
Yeah.
how do they choose to either cooperate or not cooperate.
Yeah.
And form a consensus rather than
I always
there's
had
actually
one advisory member, as you
the
guys well know, on
capital budget.
on
Yeah.
capital budget.
Rather than here's the set of procedures
Yeah.
that we'll use every year for for capital budget and operating budget.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same issue that I think plagues a lot of the sort of darker sort of corners of our town government is that these decisions are being made by a very small group of volunteer appointees who may or may not have the time or the expertise to really be doing it,
Yeah,
and,
that's true. That's true.
and it's just kind of, it's like, this is what small town Massachusetts was like 50 years ago, and we haven't really evolved to. I mean, there's so many aspects of our town government that function that way, right? I always my knee-jerk reaction is to reject the notion of this is how it's always been done, and this is what is great about Sherborn, that people just step up, and it's just like, well, that's maybe not the most professional way to run a town, actually, and it's advisory is to some degree the same issue, right? I mean, there's 9 members of advisory, so it's like there's a bigger cushion there than the 3 members of capital budget, but it still is plagued with the same problem of, I feel like right now, the past few years, we've seen that there's been a lot of turnover on advisory, and now all of a sudden there's very little institutional knowledge on that committee, even though there's currently eight members. It happened actually when I started as well, and when George Morrill switched over to select board, it's like suddenly Steve Leahy was the chair in his second year. And then shortly thereafter, I was the vice chair and then the chair, and I was like, we were both like, we don't know what we're doing.
Versus when I started, Ben Williams had been on there for probably 15 years or something.
Yeah.
Like
So I think to me, that was part of the whole goal of getting somebody like Jeremy to be the town administrator and to have the the model where more of the responsibility was going on to the town administrator and getting somebody who has the financial expertise to be able to take ownership of the town's budget and the capital improvement plan. But it hasn't been formalized, essentially.
Formalizing it might have some advantages.
Right.
Clarify things and avoid some of the ambiguity of whose document is this.
Yeah, and I remember when
that should go to the government.
Absolutely, I completely agree.
For this cycle, we don't have that. So
of course.
Rely on good people in good positions.
Of course.
And I have to say, for all the discussion you all had, I thought advisory's done a fabulous job. Did a fabulous job last year, did a fabulous job the year before, and the members of this board who were on advisory, excellent. Compared to what I see in other towns, this is a star team.
You're lucky.
We've been very lucky. So yes, it's good to institutionalize some of this and can't always count that there'll be stars like we've had, but we've done pretty well.
Yeah, but it does seem like professionalizing and formalizing and being like, we're going to hire a person who we're paying a high salary to and who ideally has, year after year, some continuity in things like the budget to basically take ownership of it. I think is I don't know, to me is a better model.
Finally, we have such a person.
Yes,
indeed.
Well, I actually like our system though, because I like having some independence look at, not just having a town.
Well, I mean, I think the advisory committee is still there, right? And it's not
I even like the capital budget too. I think that they perform.
I think their function is still important. I'm not saying that we should dissolve the committee, but I think that simply having the entire town assume that the capital budget committee has got full ownership of the capital improvement plan is
input into risky. It would be my word.
They should be.
I mean,
they should be advisory.
Advisory,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
and advisory should be more focused on big picture things, right? It's again, I don't know. To me, it was the evolution during my time on advisory when it was like in my first year, I'm like, we're looking line by line at all the little minutia of every single budget. And I remember clearly like grilling, I believe it was the town clerk, Carol Marpole at the time, about her like postage line. I was like, why did it go from $400 to $600? And I was like, look at all this great work that I'm doing. And then it's just like, by year 6 on advisory, I was like, what was I doing? What was the point of that?
Well, I think if we go to having these sort of capital plans for different assets that have been put together, with the on-site insight report being an example of that, so that they actually produced, I think, a 5-year capital plan and maintenance plan. So it's based on, some analysis and some facts, knowing what you're going to need to spend 2 and 3 years down the road.
There's an advantage to having taxpayers deal with these decisions, because at the end of the day, they have to agree to take on these costs. And a lot of them are going to be outside the budget.
Yeah.
So you want to have the input, not just of a professional who does the math and makes the lists, but fundamentally, who are going to be paying the bills?
Mm-hmm.
What are we willing to support? So when we go to town meeting, we're not going to get outvoted.
Right. I think my sense would be that, nothing that I've said or thought is that we shouldn't have an advisory committee or we shouldn't have a capital budget committee. Absolutely, we should. And the role that they play to provide that kind of oversight and that kind of input from people in town is really, really important. My sense is more, we think about, hey, this budget stuff's worked pretty well the last few years because Jeremy has, at the request of advisory and capital budget, and as he said, kind of under their authority, done this budget wrap up. My early years on advisory, there was no budget wrap up. There was a spreadsheet that I maintained that was kind of all over the map and a bit of a mess. And, we did the best we could. But, what Jeremy has done the last few years has been terrific. And, maybe formalizing that, might have some benefits. Again, that's something I think for the governance task force to look into.
Yeah, but like with capital budget, since that's what we're talking about, I know like one of the things that we did a very poor job of when I was on advisory, but it was a goal to do a better job of it, was to look at the long-term planning, right? And to be working with the treasurer and working with the finance director and looking at the sort of like graph of where the various long-term bonds were, right? And predicting the major projects that were coming down the line, right? Because it's not a surprise when we have a fire truck, right? It's not a surprise when there's a roof, right? And so you can plan these things out and you can look at where your long-term debt, when is it coming down and when is a good year to be taking on new large projects, and when is a bad time to be like, all of a sudden we have a huge spike and we have $2 or $3 million worth of debt that we're tacking on to 1 year, right? So having that strategy. So then when we start pushing projects back or moving them up, making that decision, not just in does this roof actually need to be replaced right now or does it not? Because it's like pushing it back feels good right now, but if all you're doing is now stacking 3 major projects onto 1 year, that's probably a bad idea, right? And so having a group that is looking at that plan is
But see, I like it being
good.
advisory because what I mentioned earlier is it's not disassociated from the operating costs. So you don't want to keep cutting operating costs every year because you can't afford it, and then you have to do early replacement of a device because it failed due to lack of maintenance. So it's tightly linked in capital to what you spend on regular maintenance and operating costs, particularly in HVAC systems.
Right.
And if you don't do that, which we typically don't do, then you replace fan units instead of maintaining fan units. So it's
So
not just a
operating costs and the capital budget thinking can't be dissociated.
It's not just a capital plan, is my point there.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, that's, I think advisory, part of the charge is to look at capital within the context of the overall budget and everything, but I think it is, to me, I think advisory really should be focusing more on big picture things and less of the minutia than we traditionally have. Like with capital also, I mean, that's why I'm like looking at the free cash situation. I remember several years ago, our free cash situation was a little bit dire and we were, dipping below 3% of
Our mantra was, it's not free and it's not cash. Because we didn't have enough cash.
Yeah, because I remember our free cash was around $1 million or so, right? And meanwhile, our budget was, 28, 30 million.
Yes.
And now we almost have the opposite problem where we've got too much of it, right? And I think we were for so long, we were trying to protect and preserve the free cash that we have failed to utilize it in a wise way.
We used to overutilize it.
And we're just like dumping a whole bunch of long-term debt now that we could be relieving. I mean, and most of that free cash that was part of the tax levy, right? So,
absolutely was.
So it's like, why did we tax the people and now we just have that money sitting?
Well, it's just like the excess and deficiency at the regional school.
Which is, it's down closer to 3% right now, E&D for
because
schools.
they can go up to 5%, I think, max.
And they traditionally always try to keep it right at 5.
I know.
But they're closer to 3 right now.
Better work on Don.
Yeah, but so that's why I'm like, we should probably try to come up with, and maybe we're the group that needs to do it, but I don't know, it might be better if advisory did it to figure out like what would be the wisest strategy to start working that free cash back down to a 5%. Like, where can we put that money? Like, should it be stabilization funds or should we just be dumping it into capital projects? Like, what should we be doing with it?
In terms of sort of looking forward, there's also, I think, an interesting set of numbers to look at of, given this capital plan, what would this imply for the next 5 years for debt service? And is that
Your
in a
graphs
range?
that you
We've done some of that.
Yeah.
And is that debt service as a share of the budget something that we in advisory are comfortable with, or not? And if not, then what changes should be made?
Yeah, and I know this was something that Eric was really harping on in his last year on the select board, but I agree that more of our borrowing should be brought in under Prop 2.5. I don't think that we should be just doing exempt borrowing for every single thing that we do, and that's going to be difficult. I know. The levy limit is like this right now, but is it? I mean, it's like, we don't want to be voting an override. It's like, well, we vote overrides every single year. Every single year, we're voting overrides for most of our capital projects. Mini
overrides.
Mini overrides. Every single time. That whole long paragraph that you have to read. So it's all part of the strategy, right? It's our levy limit is very our excess levy capacity is very small right now, and we're so afraid of it, and we keep on voting debt exclusions in. But meanwhile, our free cash is ballooning. So it's like I think we need to balance those two things out.
If we start getting more electric vehicles, we might not be buying a new police car every year. I mean, I feel like if we're getting EVs, they're going to have much longer life expectancy and lower maintenance costs.
Yeah.
It might be a little more expensive up front, but we might have to look at some of our sort of fundamental assumptions on things.
Yeah, not so much engine idling time,
Yeah.
So none of the towns I work for have these 10, 15 operating debt exclusions on the ballot every year.
Yeah.
They would have one like every 8 to 10 years, and it would be for like
A really
$200 million.
a really big thing.
Right. A new building. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, not
Everything.
$25,000 for new carpeting. And we do everything. It says.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, if it's not free cash, it's tax exempt.
I mean, I think the challenge is if we went in that direction, we'd stop doing mini overrides on debt exclusions, but probably then we'd do a operating budget override because we'd use up the excess levy capacity. And then so it's
Not if you start at least short term use free cash.
no, absolutely. The free cash could help with that.
Yeah, but to some degree, it almost feels like that might be a more transparent way to manage the town's overall budget, right? Is that if the reality is that we're bringing more stuff into operating and operating is going to hit the levy limit, it's like, that's the actual budget situation that we're in right now, So we've bought. I mean, we have $750,000 in excess levy capacity. If most of our borrowing over the past 5-10 years hadn't been excluded debt, we would be at the levy limit.
Yep.
We are at the levy limit. We've just been preemptively voting overrides. So,
Well, it was shocking to me to see the chart that had the average tax bill there, with us still being number one in the state.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it was 30 years ago.
Not quite number one.
Yeah, we're like
but,
number three.
But way up there.
Record currently.
Yeah.
Currently number one.
Yeah.
We're way up
Number
there.
two.
Well, that's why.
2 or 3, right?
That's why I think
We're way up there.
the decreasing tax rate it's fool's gold, because that's all just driven by the property values going up.
And
but everyone's tax bill.
People care about what size check do they have to write.
Yeah, they notice the fact that they're paying $20,000 a year.
Yeah.
But we're a small town, so there's a certain amount of fixed costs that
Yeah.
a town twice this size doesn't have twice the expenditures, So it's partly just the size thing.
Yeah.
And
So shall we go on to the warrant?
yeah.
One before we move on to that, I just want to. This is the history of your free cash and what you've been spending for capital. I think, as you mentioned, there's some room for movement there in the near term. And then on this slide, I put a question mark here because your capital stabilization fund currently has balances $450,000. It doesn't have a revenue stream other than what you put into it. However, there are some funds building up there. And in addition to that, you may have some other decisions to be made for some other one-time infusions of funds, possibly a reduction in your overlay of about $300,000. So that is a decision to be made where that may go towards capital. And,
But the actual release of the overlay is up to the
up to
assessors,
the
right?
Board of Assessors,
Yeah.
but they've communicated that they are likely to release some.
Okay.
They want to get their footing into the new year, but it's more overlay than you need. It was built up for a reason.
Yeah.
The reason's gone.
Yeah.
And then additionally, the library funds, what we got from
The settlement.
agreement, the settlement funds are available for some purpose.
Is that in the free cash right now?
Not in free cash, it's those funds sit in a separate account.
And what's the rough amount?
$400,000 to $500,000. And there's $100,000 in the lead certification funds. Which are also sitting ready to be appropriated.
So we're looking at just shy of another $1 million, basically, probably. Yeah.
You need to consider those as one-time funds.
Yeah, but still.
Yeah.
But they are available.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Very helpful, thanks.
Yeah.
Really, really helpful.
Okay, sorry for dragging that out. Consideration of opening the warrant for town meeting.
Is that time?
Yeah, let's open it.
Meeting warrant for.
What date do you propose?
I suggest you open it as soon as you wish. Now, you could open it now and publicize it.
When do we traditionally close it?
January, maybe your second meeting in January.
Okay.
Was that the 22nd at noon on that day? You could close it.
Okay.
Then that would give us time to compile what has been submitted. And
Yeah.
So I move that we open the warrant tomorrow morning at the opening of business and we close it on close of business of
January 22nd,
January
the
22nd.
date of your next second meeting in January.
Okay. Do we want to close it before or after that second meeting?
Close it before. So
Before, then we can consider.
Close of business, 5 o'clock.
Right,
We'll
okay.
be able to compile for that evening.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Wait, so did you
Similar timeline is what you did last year.
did you just make a motion?
I made a motion and where's my seconder?
Second, dozing off.
All right. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
One thing that we've done in the past
I'm getting
is
beats
put
and
out,
updates
with
as
the
well, I'm looking
announcement
at.
that the warrant is open, put out a notice to anyone doing a citizen's petition that they should schedule something with the select board so that we have time to look at the citizen's petitions before they're set in stone. I mean, that's been done in the past, but I don't know, I think it's a good idea,
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
just to advise people.
Yeah, not that they have to, but it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Some of my towns have me as town council be available because many times these petitions come in and they're totally illegal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I've had ones, to end the war and X. And it has no,
I believe we did that a couple of years ago. We just ended up paying for a couple hours of town council for nothing.
Well, we may or may not need town council. We got Paul for free.
Yeah. Will you do it for free?
well, I like the idea of them coming here and saying, "Gee, would you guys support something that says that, Sherborn will launch a settlement on Mars next year?" And then we can have a discussion about how we fund it and
Yeah.
where's the rocket going to launch from and all that kind of stuff.
Jameson, they got that $100,000. They can set up a launch pad.
And by the time the discussion is over, maybe the person wouldn't go forward with that particular petition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And save a lot of time at town meeting.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Select board reports. I have nothing.
I have one very short. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
You go ahead.
I was just going to say, Amelia and I put together an updated draft of that letter
Oh,
to
yeah, I saw
our
that.
reps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which does exactly what we said, which is states support for the general idea and the broad, goals of the legislation without getting super specific. So it was set up, Diane and Amelia set it up for all of us to sign. So I have copies, and maybe at the end of the meeting, everybody can stop and just sign.
Move
Good.
approval.
I don't know that we need to approve it. do we?
I think you did
I
that
think we
before.
moved approval at last meeting.
I think just a matter of getting signatures, and then they can get sent off.
Jeff?
Yeah, I was just going to thank the town for the Boy Scouts, on behalf of the Boy Scouts, for supporting our resale. We had two scouts that led the program, Jack Kozlowski and Piku Ash. Unfortunately, Piku is coaching the cross-country ski team tonight, and Jack's working at Home Depot, so neither one of them could be here tonight. I was going to have them speak at the start of the meeting. We sold 460 wreaths, roughly, of different sizes, different types. And I don't know the exact number, but I think we're up to a couple hundred households that we sold to also. So just want to thank the town for their support, to support the troop. And we have delivered, first of all, thank the DPW and Sean for giving us a full bay in the garage, although we had to very quickly over the weekend clear out 2/3 of the bay, so giant dump trucks with plows on them could get in that space. But we've delivered all but 30 homes, I think, right now. So tomorrow afternoon we're going to finish them. Marion, I had to make sure select board members got theirs last night before I made this announcement. So.
Yeah, I knew you'd been there because I found a big red bow in my driveway.
Yeah,
I was gonna bring it back to you today. But I in turn want to thank Jeff for putting in so much time on this Boy Scouts and other Boy Scout projects. He personally delivered my wreaths last night, and I have no idea how many houses.
I did about a dozen houses last night in the dark, including former Scoutmasters like Mike Webb and Mike Krebs.
Jeff Santa.
So,
Yeah.
What's your middle name, Santa?
So yes.
Delivering gifts around.
So we've made pretty good progress. We have a few more to do tomorrow afternoon. But anyway,
Thank you.
it's good effort. DPW, I think we're going to do that again. It's just much easier to be indoors and to have a bay. And what happened is we over-decorated. The boys are eating pizza, and we didn't have many plain wreaths left because they just kept decorating. So Marion ordered plain and got decorated. All right. TA report?
Yeah, just an update on the municipal electrical supply contract. The term of that supply contract ended in November. All the town buildings are now going to roll into the townwide aggregation, the one that's offered all of the residents. So that's a more competitive rate than the market, and also has some sustainability component. So that was fortunate that all of the town buildings do sort of comply with that program and can roll into that. So I think before long, I think we'll have the sustainability committee come and give an update on the aggregation program. There's some really interesting numbers to present. So get that on your radar.
Great.
And just some updates on capital projects. The pedestrian crossing signals have been installed on South Main Street. So those are operating and flashing. Those were put in the last couple of days. The Western Ave traffic calming.
Can I make a suggestion on those? Because I drive by them all the time.
Sure.
Everybody's driving 40, 50 miles an hour.
I
And then
know.
suddenly you see this pedestrian thing. It might be good to have like a little warning sign saying
Yeah, there's advanced
pedestrian warning.
signals, and I think we're going to need to fine tune where some of those signal posts are, just from my observations over the last day or two. So, point well taken. Driving along at 40 miles an hour and flashes come up, there's a certain amount of time you need to stop.
Yes.
For the Western Ave traffic calming features that Public Works has installed, we have gotten a number of inquiries. We've queued up the Public Safety Committee to meet next Tuesday. It's going to be a hybrid meeting, so folks can attend by Zoom to talk about some of those concerns and how that project, how's it functioning, what additional improvements or and the like. So the safety committee will talk about it.
I've had 8 people already call me about it.
Yeah, point them to that meeting on Tuesday afternoon. I think they've posted the meeting. It might, should be on the town website, but it'll be hybrid in place at the police station. So I'm sure it'll be a conversation we had there. I'm going to try to make it if I don't have to get called for jury duty.
Jury duty.
Everyone I talk to is hoping the snowplows take them out. Let me put it that way.
The Woodhaven water treatment upgrades are hopefully going live, from the storage tank water to the actual well water and treated water tomorrow. A big milestone there, and the big tanker trucks can leave. That project wrapped up fairly soon. And so,
Great. Thank you.
So can I make a motion
Yeah.
to adjourn?
Yeah.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.